as it happens, when it happens, only on Q95, the big station. Delighted to say that my distinguished guest tonight, Leroy Wadix Charles, is in the studio with us. Gordon Henderson is out there in France, I believe in Paris. McCarthy Marie is in Dominica or somewhere. He'll tell us where he is. And Ronald Lander, I believe, is in Dominica as well. And we have a very, very special guest with us tonight. He's the former UWP deputy leader and finance minister in the UWP administration. His name, everybody knows it already, is Julius C. Timothy. So none of them need any introduction. They're all household names in Dominica and abroad. But tonight we're continuing to move to revive the spirit of graciousness, love, peace, prosperity, and unity among our Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean people with the topic, cultural industries, the business of culture, and the way forward for our World Creole Music Festival. Continuing to build a modern progressive society and economy in our beloved Dominica. So we're embracing this 44th anniversary of independence as a teaching moment and as an ideal opportunity to reflect on unifying our homeland around the potentials of our cultural industries, music, entertainment, festivals and events, knowledge industries, and I mean knowledge around our, all the old folks had so much knowledge and wisdom about our teas and herbs and spices, essential oils, including cannabis, performing arts, creative dance and drama, fine arts, book publishing, among many others. I say book publishing, especially because there's a big thing going on now that's going to happen on the 4th in Toronto with Dr. Irving Andre and Gabriel Christian. They're doing this big launch of a relationship with the University of Toronto. I think it's key, and we'll probably hear a lot more about that. Dominica's name is going places, and they're doing this just as at Dominica's independence. So there'll be some cultural activities taking place as the UFT, which is the top university in Canada. And all of this will as a stepping stone to the greater social and economic progress of our artists, of our musicians and entertainers in particular, and to the concomitant positive linkages with other professional service providers. We will explore what Dominica's artists, musicians, and entertainers can truly become with proper infrastructure, capitalization, planning, training, institutional structural organization, financing, niche marketing, all of this with work, wages, and wealth for all concerned with the essentials of Dominican cultural industries, also at the core of proper planning, so as to empower artists, musicians, and entertainers as a good start. So tonight, Leroy Wadix Charles, Gordon Henderson, Ronald Lander, McCarthy Marie, and Julius Timothy, we will all discuss the good, the bad, the ugly, and the dangerous with no anger, no malice, no personal attacks, no vilification, no divisiveness, just simply bringing back civility, a caring society, and progressive economic cultural practices, and recognizing, of course, the imperative for the true resilience and sustainability of our Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. So your voice is at home and your voice is a broad-take priority. Call in, tell us how you can make a fresh start in embracing this 44th anniversary of our independence to make this start in developing and promoting our cultural industries and the business of culture and the way forward for a World Creole Music Festival. And then contributing to building a modern society and economy in Dominica. So please stay with us in this space for another great debate, get the answers to your questions, be part of this solution. Wherever you are in Dominica, in the region, and globally, join us on the Global View on Q tonight. Have your say as you do every Tuesday with me on Q95, the big station. But as usual, as we get going, I send out a huge shout out, hugs, much love, appreciation, and a big thank you to our healthcare providers and frontline workers doing their best and often working under difficult conditions. Please follow the correct advice, guidelines, and protocols, and please be safe. So happy to have you with us tonight. We welcome you warmly and embrace you wherever you are, in every nook, every cranny, in every village, every community in Dominica, in the region, and globally. And I want to say a special thank you tonight to Sherwin, keeping us on air in crystal clear liquid stereo. And I also want to say a big thank you to a big guy who's back with us tonight, the indefatigable Lambert Lambi, Charles. Lambi, take a bow. It's good to see you're a survivor. You're a tough guy. You're back and back with a vengeance, looking good. So I want to say that Lambi will direct the traffic for us tonight. He will direct your calls to us a little later on. We open the lines and we extend well wishes to Lambi and his family in all of the undertakings as he continues on his journey to full recovery. So tonight, as we say, the people's voice is priority, and we will take your call. So let's get started. I want to go first to when I get started. I want to go first to Mr. Julius Timothy to give us some kind of historic and up to the present day situation analysis as to what he sees as having been taking place in the music, entertainment, festivals, and events in Dominica, and where we should be going from here in the context of our topic tonight, which, as I remind you, is cultural industries, the business of culture, and the way forward for our World Creole Music Festival. All of this contributing to building a modern, progressive society and economy in Dominica. And just to remind you that we are doing this in the context, and remind our audience, we're doing the context that we are embracing this 44th anniversary of independence as a teaching moment, as an ideal opportunity to reflect on unifying our homeland. I'm hearing a lot of people saying a lot of things as we go along, but we want to unify the homeland around the potentials of our cultural industries, music and entertainment, festival and events, knowledge industries around our herbs, our teas, our spices, our essentials, all including cannabis. We know we have a lot of performing arts and artists who have been doing this for years, creative dance and drama, fine arts, book publishing, among many others. So we see these as all stepping stones for this greater social and economic progress of our people. And so any national plan for the development of culture products and industries must certainly include all of the artists, the craft persons, the folklorists, the poets, the writers, the composers, and other such stakeholders in all of the relevant subsectors. We cannot ignore the other cultural economic products besides music, entertainment, and festivals. We have to include and incorporate all of them. It's all part of the Creole potpourri. So let's look at the world stage in terms of existing cultural industries and industry products, the various markets of these industries, the geographical locations of these markets, the consumers' habits and preferences in those markets, or within the niche segments of those markets. And then we can look at some of those niche markets in various regions in the world where Dominica's cultural industries products can be successfully promoted, staged, be competitive, and bring returns to our Kalinago and African Caribbean people. So, Honorable Mr. Julius C. Timothy, you get to have the first word. Over to you. You can unmute your mic and let's get started.
Yes, Sheridan.
Yes.
Good night to the listening audience. In terms of the World Creole Music Festival, we have to understand where the whole concept came from. For instance, Dominica has always, for some reason, have had a lot of bands. We have also a lot of Creole bands. So the foundation for the World Creole Music Festival is there. You will remember when we talked first time about it was not Creole Music Festival then. We were in Barbados and we were talking after us crop over, thinking of what we can do for Dominica. And in our thoughts, we realized that these local Creole bands was what we have had to coalesce the thing around. And that is why, for instance, I heard Wadix on the radio and said we should remove Creole from the name. I think is very, very wrong. What we have to do, it is ensure that it is creolized. We now are doing things alone. From the beginning, we wanted to get the whole Francophone world with us. But somewhere along the road, the thing has gone out the window. Even our bands were most of them were self-sufficient. Our bands were not going to government and other people asking for help to go anywhere, to promote anything. The bands were themselves self-sufficient. What is happening? Why do we have to go and ask for help? Because the whole economic cycle in Dominica is wrapped up into a system whereby we have to go and ask government for help. So we have to rethink the whole thing. People have to be able to be self-sufficient. Our Creole music festival and can be re-creolized. We can get the Francophone to get Alliance Française and so on to assist us. And get the whole thing in such a manner that we can be truly the center for creolization, if you want to call it, if there's such a word. Okay? So let us remember when we talked about the World Creole Music Festival, the very first year, I remember when I asked Cabinet for at least give us 1 year, please give us 1 year and let us see the impact of this thing. And the impact on the commerce of Dominica was such that all the Cabinet colleagues, everyone, were on board when they saw the economic impact of this festival in Dominica. And that is why we must rethink the whole concept. Let us see how we can get the Creole Festival to move on its own. You will remember the first year, the government gave NDC $200,000 for the Creole Festival. The second year, the government gave NDC $100,000 for the festival. By the third year, the festival had broken even to the extent that we wanted to put the Creole Festival out to the private sector, because we've always said that this is not supposed to be government's business. Government has to be there to create the enabling environment. And if the private sector business could start the Creole Music Festival, could take it over, even if in the first few instance that government would give a subvention. But right now, the whole Creole Music Festival is part of government's business. I mean, to the extent that the citizenry, they have no idea what is involved. Even when we have a DFC, half of the session and the funding and so on, they do not know where it comes from. How it, the whole thing has to be re-thought out to really make economic sense, to make business sense, to make cultural sense. For instance, I heard the Minister for St. Lucia talking about St. Lucia could have their Creole Music Festival. I think they can have something, but they don't have the cultural aspect which we have in Dominica. To begin with, they don't have the bands which we have in Dominica. They would have to, every band would have to be imported. Because what I found strange in St. Lucia, they speak more Creole than us. But they, in terms of Creole music, they've never got anywhere with it. So, I mean, the minister may mean well, but he does not have the fundamental in getting this thing going. But we have it in Dominica, and we are really making a total mess of it. I'll stop there for now.
Well, yes, and I think that was a very good start, as a matter of fact. I just want to add something to that, just very briefly, and then I want to go over to Mark Marie, because I want to put this thing first to put all these cultural industries in context, and to put the whole notion of what are we doing with that one World Tourist Festival as one event, one activity in all what we're talking about in cultural industries and the business of culture, and really creating a dynamic economy with the assistance of that, because I think we can do it. The plan was to, and I think I want to thank Mr. Julius Timothy for sort of creating the background of how this thing got going. I remember clearly that we did attend, you attending some meetings in Barbados. I accompanied you. We did hear the Barbados Crop Over Festival is going on. He said, hey, we need to do something. And I did say, well, look, before I left Dominica, one or two people had spoken to me about some ideas. In fact, those people said that they had spoken to other managers of the NDC before, but they never took them on. And they never did anything about the ideas. I remember Mark Murray was one of the people who spoke to me, make a recommendation, and Gordon Henderson also made a recommendation. I think one of them spoke about a Zouk festival and one spoke about a Cadas festival. But then when I got back, and I knew that I had the support of Mr. Timothy. So we called our team together at the NDC, all the heads of the department, people like Ronald Lander, people like Sobers Esprit, people like Michael Fadel, our tourism director, and so on, and our management people. And we said, okay, here's an idea. We trashed it out and say, okay, what I want to do, I want to prepare, you could prepare a concept paper, but I want each department to put it, to see how each department, each industry sector could contribute or benefit and participate in this. And that is how we arrived at the big picture, how it was going to benefit the country as a whole, the whole economy, right? One of the things I remember clearly we're saying from the ground up, the artists must benefit, Very important for the artists to benefit, for the musicians, the entertainers, everybody in the business was benefit significantly, all the way down to the vendors. Ronald will remind us, we used to provide for the vendors. We say all the vendors must benefit, whether they're inside the facility or outside the facility. When we started, we didn't have that kind of facility when the grammar school compound by the riverside there, behind the grammar school. That's all we had. And of course, today, as Mr. Timothy is verifying, that we only got $200,000 in the first year, but we made do with that. In the second year, we got 100,000. We made do with that, and we did better than we did in the first year. The point I think I hear people like Wadix and so on making, and Mark Murray making, and all the people, is that you have to put people in charge of something that are capable of doing it, that have the knowledge of how to do it, that have the interest in doing it, that have the commitment, and that have demonstrated that they have the commitment to it. And I can tell you that there are people right here in the group among us who have had that commitment and demonstrated it. Wadix has demonstrated it. We've seen what he's been doing with Kada Slipso. He loves Kada, so he's been promoting Kada as a team. What he's demonstrating is that you need a team. It's a team effort. You can't be a one-man show in this thing, you know. When we started off, we started off with meetings after our group in the NDC prepared a cabinet paper. I went to cabinet. We presented on the cabinet. Mr. Timothy supported it. Mr. Norris Prevost supported it. The Prime Minister James supported it. Cabinet said, go ahead and flesh it out and come back with something. And let's do something. We'll give you $200,000. We put some committees together. Mark Murray was on a committee. We had committees, people like Mark Murray, Michael Fagan on the committees, and several other people. Some people attended one or two meetings, and other people attended more consistently. But then eventually what we did, we had an actual group now, Landa, you remember, that was actually the organizers of the event. That's what it came down to. All of the time before these committees were to get the ideas crystallized. But eventually what we had to do was put a team together to manage the facilities. So we had somebody in charge of venue, somebody in charge of security, somebody in charge of bars, somebody in charge of gates, tickets, all kind of things like that, right? Wadix, when he came along, I remember Wadix was very instrumental in helping to select the music. And we always we tried to get the public engaged in the selection of the music. That was very, very important. The selection of the right kind of music. In fact, I asked Wadix yesterday to try to see if he could find for me a copy of the first two, the lineups for the first two. Yeah, and he has it, so he'll tell us, because that will give us an indication of what it is that we're trying. You see what Mr. Timothy was saying? With the idea was we're trying to make sure we embrace all the Creole-speaking countries. And Mark Murray is somebody who has been insisting on that. I think Gordon Henderson has been insisting on that as well. We have to get the thing Creolized. It cannot be just, you know, and then the business of Creole, Mr. Timothy will tell you that and in fact, even at the NDC, when we started doing this, we decided that what was going to be included in Creole, you know, and all these countries that we spoke about, and I know Mark Murray is looking at the geography and identifying them, and I'm sure he will do that. But, and then the kinds of music, we did in fact indicate reggae was Creole, you know, Canas was Creole, Zouk was Creole, you know, all these musics were Creole, Calypso, we wanted all our Calypso and all of that in there. See, this is all of the thoughts that we had on this. You wanted to embrace and include all the players. But I think one of the things that drove us a lot is that ultimately, we wanted to make sure that the artists, the musicians, the entertainers, the people involved in the business, that they succeeded. The purpose was to get them out there and bring them their talent out there, help them and put them out on the market that Mark is talking about, put them out there and make them make money. Build up their talent so they can, so in other words, they were not to be sidelined on a small side stage. That was not the idea. They had to be developed, their skills developed, their instruments developed, everything, so that they could be on the main stage, because the idea was to put our music. We have two genres in Dominica now. We have a lot more, but it's the two prominent ones. You have the cadence, you have the bouillon. You have the order, all the music, the traditional music, and we have all the other traditional groups that came before. But the two prominent ones would be the Kadas and the Bouillon. In fact, we have to use that and build that and make sure that all our artists, why can't our artists be millionaires? Why shouldn't they be millionaires? In fact, that's the whole purpose of the thing, to put them out there and make them wealthy, and create the new economy. So I just wanted to say all of that in terms of how we manage to get this thing going. And the reason I wanted to clarify that is because, you see, Mr. Timothy made a comment there about the way he sees things going on now. And the people are not being involved in it. But we involved the people when we got going, in so much so, and we promoted it and marketed it in a way that everybody said is our festival. See, festival new. And then when it was promoted in the other countries by Gordon Henderson and other people in the French countries and in all these countries out there, these people felt it was their festival too. Because that's the way we promoted, we embraced. And I think what Julius Timothy is saying, we should have been embracing more of these countries. I remember, Ronald, that we prepared a paper at the NDC to send to the Francophonie to get some assistance, and a complete document. And then there was a Belgian lady who was a student intern at the time, and we asked her to convert the whole thing to French. She was this, and she put it in French, and we sent it to the Ministry of External Affairs, but we never heard about it again. So we did, in fact, try to get some assistance from the front, but somehow, I don't know if they had not been paying their fees, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, it just died there. It never pushed it. But what we did do, and Mark, you might remember that, what we did do, in fact, is we established what you call, registered what you call a World Federation of Creole Cultures. That was established, and we had a couple of sessions for 2 years where we brought in a couple of professors from the university to talk about the language and so on. That was the beginning. I remember, Ronald, that we got that funded by the French mission in St. Lucia. They actually provided some funding for us. One of the things that we had planned to do was to do what you call an awards. You see, everybody have their Latin music awards, and they have their country music awards, and we are planning to do a Creole music awards, and to bring all the big giants down to Dominica. We have this big thing. So we're looking at the Creole music Dominica being the headquarters for all of that. And that is how we're going to promote Dominica to the world. And so I think we have dropped the ball to some extent. We have a lot of those things to disappear. And what Mr. Timothy is saying to us, the UWP had never intended that World Creole Music Festival was going to remain in the government. It was going to be going out to the private sector, and government would provide a subvention to ensure that it succeeded, because the government realized, that he said, within 2 to 3 years, the kind of economic impact that was having on the country. Today I'm hearing people boasting about all taxes were taken up, all rentals were taken up, all hotel rooms and restaurants. But that was the intention. But you remember, guys, at the time we were doing it, there are people, some detractors who said, oh, that was just, they call it a fete for the boys. Somebody called it a bastardization of the culture. But we knew what we were doing because we had done our homework. Of course, and there's a lot more we'll talk about it, but I want to go over to Mark. Mark, let us try to put this thing in perspective so we can see where we really want to go with this and what kind of impact it can really have on our country. You might want to unmute your mic, Mark.
Yes, I was saying, maybe I should just start at the beginning. It is very good place to start. I think I was the first person, I was the first person who knew that there was going to be a festival after the board of directors had made the decision. Mm-hmm. Because by happenstance, I happened to enter the building where the NDC was located at the time, which is now houses the forestry, right, Parks Division. And I got up to the landing, and the chairperson of the committee stepped out of the boardroom on his way to the bathroom, which was across, and I was right there. And he says to me, the festival is on. Mr. Georges will be in touch with you. And Mr. Georges was at the time the acting general manager. You had not yet come into officially into the position. And we, four of us, had the first meeting to talk about this festival. It was Subas Esprit, Fred Nicholas, myself, and Mr. Georges. And we were speaking about organizing a Kadas festival. And that was in August of 1995. The event eventually took place in 1997. You came into office officially, I think, somewhere about September of 1995, and you organized in February of 1996 a grand meeting at the Garraway Hotel to talk about this event, the festival, as well as general cultural development. And I remember you had brought Alwyn Bully, who was at the time UNESCO's advisor on culture for the Caribbean, to the event, as well as a gentleman from Barbados, Boo Rudder. I happen to know his name pretty well because he was also a band leader, and at the time he was the person running the Crop Over Festival, which, by the way, the Crop Over Festival was a thing that was inspired by Dominicans, Antiguans, a couple Trinidadians at the University of the West Indies campus in Cayville, yeah, before actually the Bajans decided they could have a carnival too, because they saw our carnival at the university. Yeah, so the event was supposed to be a Kadas festival, meaning that the event was supposed to highlight Dominican musicians and what they do. Because Kadas Lipso is identified and associated with Dominica. We had a number of meetings at which we discussed how we would do it, who we would have. So we are in now 1996, and we are discussing it. And the idea of having it is firmed up. And I remember that I was the one who said, you know, there's a little problem organizing or naming the event a Kadas Lipso Festival. Because at the time, the number of Kadas Lipso practitioners as such had diminished. And it was basically Ophelia, Midnight Groovers, Jeff was still doing his thing, and Gordon was doing a little thing as well. So at the time, Zouk was very popular from Curaçao. So somebody at the meeting, I can't remember who it was, said, why don't we have then a Zouk stroke Kadas festival? So for a couple months, we had discussions talking about organizing a Zouk Kadas festival. Then I said again at some of these meetings that a Zouk Kadas festival doesn't sound, as a name, commercially viable. It sounds more like a disease, you might say, rather than a happy event. Not to mention that a Zouk, as I explained to the people, was a strictly Martinican kind of a thing. Up to now, they have never had a Zouk in Guadeloupe, for example. So I said we had to find a word that would encapsulate all of that, but had durability, because Zouk being popular then didn't mean it would have the same popularity like today, for example. So we had to have a word that had durability. And I kind of thought, and Creole came to my mind. I said, right, Creole Music Festival. Michael Fagan was in the room at the time with us, and he said, World Creole Music Festival. And that's how the present name of the festival came about. So it's a World Creole Music Festival. To get into a little linguistics, every language, modern language, has a lexicon. For example, people are familiar with Latin languages. But what that means actually is that these languages are based on Latin. So you have the Latin, people speak about Latin America. They don't speak Latin in Latin America, actually. They speak Spanish and Portuguese. So the Latin languages are Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and there's a fourth one, French. Yes. Okay. So these are the 4 Latin languages. So Creole music and the word Creole with respect to language, we were speaking about the language which we call Creole, K-W-E-O-L, whose lexifer is French. In other words, when a new thing comes along, we look to French to find the word to describe the thing. So we might, if you like, Creoliser, un mode français pour mettre un deuil. Okay? So it was clear that it wasn't a mixture of any set of languages, because otherwise there would be no distinction between any language. For example, I went to Luxembourg and I was kind of taken aback that I heard people speak what I thought was English, then it sounded like German and it sounded like French. But so there's a language called Luxembourgeois, which is a mixture of these 3 languages. What I thought was actually German was Walloon, coming from Belgium. Yeah. So there are many Creole languages in the sense of a mixture of languages. So our Creole is a language itself that is a mixture of languages. And the dominant language it is based on is French. So when we speak about having a World Creole Music Festival, we're talking about having a festival that's based on the language as the principal identifier of the cultural space. And to tell you where that exists geographically, in North America, it's Louisiana. In the Indian Ocean, it's Mauritius and Seychelles. And I'll give you a little story about Seychelles. I worked with the Performing Rights Society promoting copyright, etc. And in St. Lucia, I was with a management, part of the management team of the Performing Rights Society, in a lawyer's office, waiting to see the lawyer. Happens that the gentleman, who was a white guy, had been the Attorney General of the Seychelles. So while we were sitting there were 2 St. Lucian, a couple, I would say on the older side of the age divide, who were speaking, and they were speaking in Creole. And the gentleman with me jumps up in surprise and amazement and says, "Oh my God, but I'm understanding what they're saying." Because it had never occurred to him, or he knew that the people in St. Lucia spoke Creole, the same Creole he speaks and knows of in the Seychelles. Yes, so the Creole world would include that. And in South America, of course, it would include French Guyana, where they speak Creole. And each of these Creoles have their own little, you might say, idiosyncrasies. And of course, the major speaker of Creole is Haiti. Haiti has more than 11 million people, all of whom speak Creole. Yes, they write it as well, and they teach it in school for quite a while now. So that's the Creole world. And then with respect to having the festival, the music, its core would be made up of the music that's played in these countries, which all happen to be pretty similar.
Let's stop 1 second to include, because you mentioned several countries, but I don't think you looked at any of the African countries yet.
No, because I was saying the core of the countries in there's no country in Africa itself, the continent, that actually speaks Creole. So
we're talking about the language. The language.
Yeah. The language, yeah. But there's an interesting thing that happens there. I will get back to that there. So that would form the core of the of the music, the music that comes from these countries. For example, which we actually did do, we brought Zydeco music to Dominica. And I was the one who had proposed that. I'd actually never heard Zydeco music, but I'd read a lot about Zydeco music, and I knew who one of the big stars was, a guy called Buckwheat Zydeco. And he came and he played his Zydeco music. And I know the public in Dominica were quite pleased with it. It was the first time they were hearing Zydeco music. But it came from Louisiana. I think we had them once, Zydeco band once again, and then we forgot that. We then got into the era of looking for soi-disant big names. We used to say people that the children in Dominica seen on TV. So that's how we end up switching from, if you like, the core to the thing to end up with somebody else. The intention always was, at least in my mind, that the star, so far as you want to have a star in a festival, would be a Dominican artist or group, followed by bands and or groups from the core Creole world, which would allow us then to have other acts from countries that have a similar music, for example, salsa in Cuba, merengue from the Dominican Republic, etc. Not to mention, importantly, although they don't form part of the core Creole world, the Lusophone countries, we just say the countries where they speak Portuguese, the music from the Creole countries happens to be very, very popular. In Angola, there's a style of music called kizomba, which is associated with a dance also called kizomba. That's very popular all over the world. And we've never had a group from Angola performing kizomba at our festival, because the organizers of the festival have a bit of a problem.
But Mark, let's put a little pause here. Let's take a little period. We can come back. But I think what you did there, we started looking at the origins of all the ideas came out.
Right.
In other words, a lot of consultation took place. A lot of meetings were held.
Right, indeed.
And ultimately, a cabinet paper was prepared. Mr. Julius Timothy and cabinet approved. As a matter of fact, Matt, one of the things I must say to you, when I came into the picture, right, and we started working on this, do you know that I had to go with it with my staff? We really did not have the full support of the board. The members of the board, not all of them understood clearly what it is we're trying to do. And I had to say to my board, listen, gentlemen, you're here to determine policy. Once you operate within the policy, the day-to-day management is left
to execute, right?
It's left to the manager to execute the management. And so what we're doing is we're going to put something under the umbrella of the CEO. We're not creating something. So the DFC ultimately became a part of the department under the manager's portfolio. And so you had some board members who felt, hey, this fella's doing all kind of things and so on. They didn't really understand it, because you see, boards are not always, people are not always put on boards because of what they know in particular things, because of sometimes it's, they have expertise in other areas, not in particular in that. But I wanted to just, let's move ahead as we go along, because we can see how we're progressing, Mark. You can see the extent of discussion and consultation, and we had a lot of people involved in developing this thing. Norris Prevost might tell you that he always said that he was the one who insisted that the world should be put in there. He always says that. Now, obviously, as you go, you find different people saying different things at different times, and other people always come in and say the same thing too. But that is not really the point. The point is, or the way I see it, is that we conceptualized something which was a world product, and we wanted to get it to the world to ensure that our artists would do well. We could put them onto the world stage, that they become big stars like everybody else. And look at that Creole. The Creole was the thing, right?
Right, exactly.
That was the thing. I mean, exactly. I see Mr. Julius Timothy disagree with Wadix. that we should take up the word Creole. But I think Wadix was saying that in a context. He'll explain that when it comes to speak. But the point is, the Creole was the big thing, and we thought we could create a brand and do something real with it. And what we really wanted to put people who are knowledgeable, who have an interest in the thing, to deal with it. And that is why Mr. Timothy was saying, ultimately, they were prepared, if they were in government, they would have prepared to move it out of the government and put it in the hands of people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? And to take it to where it's supposed to go. The people who really, from the ground floor, conceptualized and knew where they wanted it to go and were capable to bring it there. Right? We were going to get to that point as our discussion goes along. Let me just quickly bring in Ronald, and then I will go to Wadix. I noticed that Gordon, his internet is going in and out. So when he is able to stabilize and come in, he's not with us now. I'll bring him in. But Ron, let me just go to you.
But Sheridan, I think he just said, let me in. I think he just wrote something they say, let me in. So maybe...
Well, Sherwin would have to let him in, because I noticed he came in a while ago and it went out again. So Sherwin, if you're listening, you can admit Gordon into the room. But I mean, Ron, let's hear, you can unmute your mic and let's talk. So Gordon is with us now. Hopefully his internet might be stable and he might be able to stay with us. We'd love to hear from him. Ron, maybe you can unmute your mic and so we can hear from you. I don't know if you're hearing me, Ron. Your mic is muted. Okay, well, Ron, you're having difficulties with your mic. If you are, then I would go over to Wadix while we allow you to sort yourself out. Wadix, Wadix, we've been hearing a lot from you. Not only have we been hearing a lot from you in terms of cadence and the work that you're doing with cadence. I know you had a couple of big shows, and the last thing you did was the kids in Portsmouth, which was a very good thing. But we've been hearing from you lately also on your thoughts on where the Creole Music Festival is heading and this year's edition. You were very passionate about it. You know, what we try to do here in this program, we try to look at things in a real business-like kind of way. We want it down to earth and keep it real and make sure everything, put it on a positive direction. And I think a lot of what you said then made a lot of sense. Let's hear from you tonight on your own thoughts about the whole thing, where it's going.
Okay, good evening to you, Mr. Gregoire, and the other panelists, and to the listeners and viewers of the big station QFM. I want to take a small journey back into the music in particular, because that is what I was brought on for, mainly because Wadi Kole, one remember from 1980, played Creole music, 99% of Creole music. As a matter of fact, we brought Zouk to Dominica in 1984. We were the ones that brought Zouk to Dominica in 1984. Without a Wadi Kole, possibly they would never have a Zouk. We played Zouk for 15, 20 years, non-stop. We were the ones that brought Soukous to Dominica. We were the ones that brought back Cadence Lipso, because during the Hurricane David, all our Cadence Lipso records got lost. We brought back compa. We popularized compa. We could not play an event without playing Coupe Cloué and Tabu Combo. So it was the first time we were getting this kind of music on big sound. And we assisted in the metamorphosis of the bouillon music by allowing the bands to play on our song system. Like Mr. Gregoire would know, we did that upstairs courts in his facility called the Salmon Tree, and that is why I was brought in, because Mr. Gregoire understood the music. Now, this was a music festival, and Mark is right. The initial discussion towards the festival indeed started with a Cadence Festival, and the discussion indeed started in February 1996. I have it documented. And also it continued. Dennis Joseph was part of the committee then, and it became a Cadence Zouk Festival. And clearly it was Michael Fagan, that is the guy of Kubuli, who mentioned the word world. Now, one of the things Mark didn't mention is Steinberg Henry, Gregory Rabes, and Jamala was given to research the word Creole So the committee would then understand what we meant by the word Creole. So after I gave that small description or small presentation on the first 4 years for the foundation of the World Creole Music Festival, then I hope Mr. Timothy will understand why I think we should take out the word Creole. Now, Mark is also right, 100%, that the emphasis was supposed to be on French Creole. That was the vision because of the amount of French Creole people globally. And like he also said, the Creole from Spanish, Portuguese, and go on and on. So we could have invited a band from Brazil, a Latino band, salsa merengue, and it would have been unlimited bands we could have. We wouldn't just narrow it down to the Caribbean and calling it a Creole festival. The first World Creole Music Festival in 1997, and those who can view, here is the flyer. And I'm going to read out the bands. Exile 1, and if you look at the center, you're going to see an image of Gordon Henderson. So indeed, Mark is right. Kadas Lipso was supposed to be the foundation. It was because of Kadas Lipso we had the authenticity to decide we have in a World Creole Music Festival. And here is the first flyer. Gordon Henderson. And here is it. For all those who want to look at it, here is it. Gordon Henderson. The bands of the first World Creole Music Festival were Exile 1, Funky Vessa from Guadeloupe, Tabou Combo from Haiti, Rough Neg. So from the very first World Creole Music Festival, we had that raga reggae influence from Martinique called Rough Neg. We also had Nelly Star. Nelly Star also played some Zouk Vesperia set, which she produced with, and some reggae. We had RSB, we had WCK, we had the Magnum Band, we had Taxi Creole out of Martinique, we had Ophelia, we had Midnight Groovers, Zouk Machine, and the first Serenade Band. So clearly you could see from the inception, we had Kadas Lipso, we had Compa from Haiti, we had Bouyo from Dominica, and we had Zouk. So once again, clearly, and I want to repeat, the 5 genres in the first World Creole Music Festival were Kadas Lipso, Compa from Haiti, Bouyo from Dominica, French Raga from Martinique, and Zouk from the French Antilles. Let's go to 1998. This is the flyer of 1998. And from there, we started to branch out the nights in 1998. So here is the flyer for 1998. And we started to branch. We started to call the nights and theme the nights. So October 30th, 1998, we had the Bouillon Compa Extravaganza to include Apex from St. Lucia, Phantom Band from Haiti, Tanya Seval from the French Antilles, Funky Vincent from the French Antilles, and WCK. Saturday, October 31, we had the Zouk Explosion to include Chictai from the French Antilles. And then we had Buck with Zydeco, which Mark Murray mentioned about. Buck with Zydeco from Louisiana, world famous. He came and he mashed up the technical grounds of the grammar school. Ashanti. We also had Kassav. And we had the Rough and Ready Band with Daryl Bob. On Sunday, we called it the Kadas Sukus Invasion. We had Zé from Haiti, Alan Cave. We had Levitation, or Levitation with Super L, Low Black, the first Serenade, Olas Mabele, and Loketo. And this festival was closed down by Jeff Joseph. So once again, you can see an increase in the Creole genres. We added Zydeco, and we added Sukus, and we included St. Lucia. So you can already see the vision and the foundation set, and we're starting to branch out now in the various genres. 1999, and here is the flyer. 1999. As the journey continues, On Friday, October 29, 1999, we had the Raga Bouillon Extravaganza. And for the first time, we brought a different type of music from Haiti entitled the Bookman Experience. So once again, we explored the various genres around the Creole world. And those who may not know, it's a sort of kind of carnival, kind of rara kind of music from Haiti, different from the Copa. We brought them down to Dominica, once again, rough and ready. And for the first time, Nasio Fontaine. Remember that? That was October 29, 1999, Nasio Fontaine. We also brought a guy called Dede Sepuy. He plays a different type of Creole music from Martinique, world famous Creole guy. The first serenade, and then the Swinging Stars. On Saturday, October 30, Soukous, Cadence Soukous Invasion. We brought Malavoie, world-renowned Malavoie, that sort of Creole jazz, classical sort of Creole music. We had Ophelia. We had Skasha #1. We also had Diblo Dibala playing Soukous music from Congo. So we included the Congo. The first year we had Aulos Mabele and Loketo. And the other year we had Diblo. And then we had Gramax New Generation. On the Sunday night, we called that night Zouk Compa Explosion. We had Mifleur from the French Antilles. And for the first time, we had a Zouk All-Stars with Luc Leandre, Eric Bouta de Late, and Ari Soudoyan of Chictai. They're all free vocalists. We also had the WCK. We also had Exile 1, Reasons Orchestra from St. Lucia. Once again, we included the Francophonie music and the Francophonie Islands, ended by Tabu Combo. Once again, you can see we included genres by the third year. By the third year, we had Cadence Lipso, we had Rara, we had Cheval Bois, which is what Dede Sepuy plays. Different type of Creole. Then we included the Creole jazz element. With Malavoie, we had Soukous, we had Zouk, we had the St. Lucia vibes, we had Compa, we had Bouillon, we had Soca, and we had Kaiso. And listen to this. By this time, we had included several acts to fill in the various changeover spots. People like Rasmo, Tradibel, Carifuna, Imperial All-Stars, that's Cornell, and the guys that made Jose Voyemote, La Selle Différence, Whitey Kuburi, Dance Theater Company, Gregoire Washla Rabes. And I want to repeat this name I'm going to call Lord Tokyo. So by the third year, we had already included Calypso. I'm going to call another Calypsonian King Breaks. So by the third year, we included Calypso, the Girodel Jimping Band, Clockers, and DJ Cut. So once again, you can see the progression, the inclusion, and the foundation set as we continue to allow the various genres to converge in Dominica. Then I will stop with 2000 because that's the year Eddie died. And at that particular edition, on Friday, October 27th, 2000, we had Sakis, one of the most prolific Soukous dancer singer ever. We brought in for the first time Cuban salsa. So that is what McMurray was talking about. So we then now by the fourth year included a Cuban salsa all-star. Then we brought in the former president of Haiti, Sweet Mickey. Then we went now to include, we had Nasio, we had Nelly Star, we had Roughneck, and then we included Aswad. Aswad, world-renowned reggae band, and the first serenade. On Saturday, October 28th, Kassav once again, Jean-Michel Cabrimol, Cadence and Zouk. And by the way, that was Zouk Zydeco. And the other Zydeco band Mark spoke about, Nathan and the Zydeco Chachas. So once again, we continue to include the genres. the variety of Creole genres, an explosion at Festival City. Then we brought in Akio, Goka element, the Carnival Goka you see in Guadeloupe, we brought it in. So Akio wasn't only on stage, but for the first time, Akio was in the crowd, and we're talking about 2000. So Akio band, like the Carnival band in Guadeloupe, was in the crowd. Then we had WCK. On the Sunday, we had Capital, and that is the same band that sang Gopel, Gopel, Cadence, and their type of Cadence combined in Martinique. We also had Top Vice, Midnight Groovers, Anthony Gussie, and by the 4th year, we had already to bring the Cadence legends together because it was important. They got employed. Their blood and their sweat was inculcated in the foundation. And we created an all-star with Freddie, Fitzroy, Julie, Sty. And they exploded. So once again, you could see the new salsa coming in, the new Goka, Carnival, combining with the other genres. Now, we seem to want to forget those early days because there are still people that say those early days were the best because they enjoyed every artist. Every artist was different. Their repertoire was different. Creole music was exploding all over Dominica. Something was happening. We included the Franco world. We allowed Guadeloupe, Martinique, and because of the federation, we may speak about later, to make these people feel the festival is theirs, it's ours. And that is why we had that film, Musica Nu. It is taking place in Dominica, but it is all of us festival. So Mr. Timothy, this is the reason why I am saying what I'm saying, because this year we had 5 reggae bands and a French raga. We had only 1 Cadaslypso band. We don't have to pay per diem. We don't have to pay airfare. We don't have to pay hotel accommodation. And we crucified that band with a string, with a catalog of hits into 45 minutes and ran them off stage. It was so good to see Mikel and Chubby performing. They wanted to include younger Cadaslypso artists like White Ferry and Lobster. They couldn't. You know why? Because they were crammed into 45 minutes. And the guys from Jamaica were given hours and hours and hours. So, Mr. Timothy, that is why I am saying take out the Creole. Because here is the foundation. Because we seem to have a problem with comprehension in Dominica. To comprehend, that is why I went back to bring the history and the foundation of the Creole music, which Mark spoke about, and brought the bands which performed. You can take it over, Mr. Gregoire.
What I want to say, Wadix, is that I think Mr. Timothy will forgive you after he heard you make that explanation, but I don't think you really want to take up the Creole. You say take it out because what they're doing now.
It has been, now fortunately,
right.
I served about 5 to 6 years as the chairman of the band selection committee.
Right.
And it was war to get the Creole bands. I can say it publicly, it's the truth. I tried for 5 of the 7 years to get Gordon Henderson on, to no avail. For some reason, I do not know, because I was never given the opportunity as the band selection chairman to meet cabinet to explain to them why these are the bands we selected. But for some reason, Gordon Henderson and Exile One, the creators of the same Cadaslypso music, who refused. I have seen an intentional progression and diminishing of the Cadaslypso presence. I was backstage, and it is not because Mark is there. I was backstage and heard Mark fighting with a stage manager virtually, fighting because he had a contracted period of time, and Ophelia giving a performance of her life. You could see the amount of effort, the amount of expense, because she brought in dancers from Martinique, musicians from Martinique and other places, and she was giving a performance of her life. And they insisted on taking out Ophelia on stage for some foreign act. Mark was vexed, and Mark started to make noise. And when I went to Mark, and Mark told me what I said, Steve, with no apology, if you see you ever take out Laguadam on stage, I will be on QFM. I'll give you blows tomorrow. Leave the lady sing. Because you cannot tell me you've seen the performance. You've seen the people appreciating the dance steps of Queen. So it has been a progression to minimize. This year, you were one Kadas band on the lineup for 45 minutes. 45 minutes only. In night after night after night, you only had one component of Kadas for 45 minutes. And guess what? They had the forecourt. And at the forecourt, they had Caribbean night on Friday. Listen to me carefully, you know. Caribbean night on Friday, bouillon and soca night on Saturday, and guess what on Sunday? Calypso. So not even on the forecourt, they could have included Kadas Lipso. What should I say? Should I say leave the Creole? Mr. Timothy, I hope you understand. It has been bold-faced, in-your-face, abortion, prostitution of Kadas Lipso. And I mean, you can victimize me how you want. I'm going to say it. Bold-faced, in-your-face, abortion and prostitution of Kadas Lipso. Recently, just last week, Wednesday, I teamed up with some teachers from the Roosevelt Douglas Primary School. Enthusiastic 9, 10, and 11-year-old that wants to sing Kadas. I brought them to the Kadas Lipso Square, and they all wanted to emulate these people. When you have a festival in 45 minutes, what are you telling them? What are you telling them? Now, those same 5 reggae artists, the level of profanity I heard, my word, not even in my hometown, Pottersville, where we're talking all our ghetto talk, I have heard this profanity. Song after song is the pure ghetto word of your sex organs and murder this and murder that, and that is the level I should accept our festival, Mr. Timothy. No, I know the foundation. I was part of the foundation. I assisted in creating the lineup of the foundation. And in 2022, if you want to continue to have the festival on that level, take out the Creole. If you want to have the Creole, let us sit down, reevaluate, let us reset. Let us reset our agenda, understand why we're using the word Creole. And we're not saying don't bring a reggae band. We're not saying don't bring a soca band. But like Max say, why should they be dominating? We have our legends alive. Gordon is alive. Halibut is alive. Halibut can't even buy a cell phone. And people come with millions of dollars and just go. And Wadix should shut up his mouth.
No, Wadix should not shut up his mouth.
Sheridan, can I say something?
Mark, wait a minute.
No, there's something important. There's something important I need to say about Gordon.
I'm going to let you say it in a minute. I'll let you say it in a second. But I wanted to just settle something here with Wadix right now. You see this Creole? I don't think Wadix really mean to take out the Creole. Wadix is really upset with the way the Creole is being treated. But you don't want to
Mr. G. This thing has been going on for years, you know.
I know.
And that is why I came here to say I've been fighting. As a matter of fact, I resigned as chairman.
I know.
And I was brought in here to bring the Creole aspect. I resigned. Mainly because I see a bold-faced, in-your-face, intentional kicking out, flushing the Kadas and the Creole. No, one of the best bands for the whole festival was Joystick Bewa. In your face, and the festival is taking place in Dominica.
Yeah.
You are going to pay for hotel. You are going to pay for. Am I like Freddie, Nicholas? Should not be employed in this festival with an all-star band. Give me a break. In 2022, when we're rebonging, my brother, no amount of excuse is going to impress me as to why you live out bold-facedly, those who gave us the authenticity to have this event. And it's not because we know, seeing the flush, the blossoming of it. We should kick out, virtually kick out those who actually put their blood and their sweat to give us the authenticity to have this. When I die, well, who want to continue?
I know how you feel. Listen, the difference is this. I think the point you're making, the best years, you see the formative years and the years, you know what happened, Wadix? You see all this progression, all this expansion and making sure the Creole is there. And every year you keep adding more Creole. You know, it is a function of management and it's a function of who you are involved in doing this, because if the fact that you, in particular, as you said, you already put my business upside there. So since 3 days, we're doing this thing down there. But the point is, you've been doing this for years. Now, when we got going, Wadix, I'll let Mark come and make a statement about God in a minute, because after that, I want to go to God. When we got going, one of the things that happened, in fact, is that people like yourself, people like Gordon and other people, Mark and so on, we were at the center of determining all those things. And that is why when you talk about embracing all these countries, the whole vision was to do this embracing, and Gordon had a major role to play in bringing in all these countries, all this media and so on in these countries, to help to make these people own the festival, to say, this is our festival too. And therefore they had to go down and participate. They felt they were part of the new, when you talk about the festival new. So I think you're quite right. I don't think it's a question of, I don't think the question is removing the Creole. I don't think that is what you really wanted. That would kill the whole thing. You take out the uniqueness, you take out the brand. But I think
Mr. G, it's no longer unique.
Well, no, but you see,
it's no longer indigenous and unique.
But it has to be brought back.
No longer. 5 reggae bands is making it unique.
It has to be
brought
back.
Like we get in everywhere else in the Caribbean, everywhere else. It's the same party. Where is the uniqueness? Where is the indigenousness? That is what it is. And it is that we want as a nation. Take out the Creole. How many of these people can speak the language? This is what that connects us to ancestors. No expression, nothing is being said about the language. Give me a break, my brother. So the language is not important at all? Because it is from the slaves? Because it is from the Negmawa? Give me a break.
Mark, I want you to comment. I don't think Wadix want to take out the Creole. He's upset that they're taking it out, but he want to put it back. So right. You want to say something about God before I go to you?
What I wanted to say was, Gordon and I and Ophelia, most people wouldn't know that, have tremendous social capital in the French West Indies, which we have been putting at the use of Dominica generally, and in particular case talking about the festival. The first year the festival happened, the person who was directly responsible for managing the events of the festival had a discussion, shall we say, with the management of Radio Caribbean International, where he insulted the persons terribly. And the person who was the program director, I know his name, but I won't say his name, sent me all the faxes of the exchanges between both of them there. And in one of those facts, the program director, Marcia, said he was tempted, or he wanted to get on his radio station and tell the people of Guadeloupe, because in particular, not to go to that festival because it's a nonsense thing, etc. It's Gordon, Ophelia, and myself, because we knew him and he knew us, who had to take ourselves and go to him and say, the guys don't understand, etc. Please excuse them, don't do that, etc., etc. Which happened. All that is happening in the background. And as you mentioned, I think Wadix alluded to that, Gordon was the person who got the French television company, which is owned by the government, to come to Dominica to film the festival. And Gordon told the persons, this is a festival for Creole people. It's your festival, and you, because the government station has an obligation to promote national culture. So it's your culture which you have to promote. And they came, and I think it cost them something like $450,000, all told, to come to Dominica to film the festival. And it's a shame and disgrace that Gordon's picture, which was on the original flyers, was taken off, and then no recognition is given to Gordon for the work he's done in the background. The WLIB presence in Dominica, the Caribbean radio station in the United States, Gordon was the one who was instrumental in getting them to come here. And sometimes Gordon would actually put up his own money, because there was a time when a group was booked to come from Europe to Dominica, which involved an overnight stay in Guadeloupe. And no arrangements were made for hotel and so on. And Gordon put up his money to pay the fees there. He got it back so that the thing went smoothly. So the exclusion of Gordon and Ophelia in particular on the festival, and the extraordinarily bad treatment which the management, particularly those who are doing that now, and they are personally responsible, and I hold them personally responsible for Ophelia's malaise in French Guiana. And back to talk about French Guiana, the reason Ophelia was in French Guiana was because there's a band called Les Difficiles that was celebrating 50 years of existence, something like Casal. The person who's in charge of the band was the former mayor of the town of Selura, which is on the border with Suriname. He also happened to have been the Minister of Tourism of France, and he had been happy and glad that he had the opportunity to accompany Ophelia once. So they invited Ophelia to come over for their 50th anniversary. That mayor and his team offered the festival commission here in Dominica that they would come to Dominica to put on a show at no expense to the festival's commission, to Dominica. They would take up all the expenses and they would perform. They would turn down. Yeah? That's what I wanted to say there.
Well, Mark, okay, very well said. I mean, all of this really, and I'm going to go to Gordon now. I'll come back to you in a moment, Ronald. But I mean, really what it tells us is that you can see the process that took place in the early days. You see the inclusiveness. You can see what we did is to put square pegs in square holes and round pegs in round holes. In other words, people who knew what they were doing, you relied on them to do the right thing because they understood the concept. What you have happening now, Gordon, is that there's nobody really in there now who originally was in the thing in the conceptual stage who really understands seriously how this thing has to be done and how, in fact, we got the results that we did. Because you see, it's easy when something is already existing and somebody else come and say, okay, let us just try to keep going with it. But it's a much more difficult thing when something entirely new has to begin. You don't know where it's going, but the point is you make some reasonable judgments, but you take some reasonable decisions as to what you think will work. And I think a lot of work had been done in terms of marketing, in terms of product development for the festival, for the music and the range. If you listen to Wadix, and the reason why I really wanted Wadix to be here tonight is so everybody would understand his knowledge of the music. You see, one of the things that he has made very clear, and I think Gordon will back me up on that, Wadix is saying the lineup is important, the inclusiveness, the range of music, and the creolization of the thing, because it's a brand. And you're looking at that brand from a marketing standpoint, and Mark already outlined to us some of the areas where we can look at the niche markets. That to me is a significant market. You're talking about millions and millions of people. And the fact of the matter is, one of the reasons why Gordon came into the scene is to look at the promotion. And RFO certainly gave us that range to start with. And a lot of people, I don't think I don't know whether RFO was there this year. Were they there this year? I'm not sure. I don't know whether
I saw a few of the members here, but not as the team for television. And they normally have a full team where they provide television and radio services. But I only saw a couple of them, I think 2 girls or so. But I saw a full RCI team, both Matic and Guadeloupe.
Well, but Gordon, just to come over to you, I recall when we were doing one of the things that we envisioned, and I remember you raising that matter, is that if we get RFO involved, you know, they're going to cover Mauritius, they're going to cover Seychelles, they're going to cover all these countries. It means that once they start rebroadcasting all of those streaming those things, it means that we get in promotion and marketing for the next festival, because you're creating consumers. That's what you're doing, and you're establishing the brand, establishing the thing in all these regions in the Creole world. Let me just go over to you, Gordon, because you've seen how the discussions have gone. It's a pity that you're going in and out. I would have brought you in earlier, but I wasn't sure. But come in and let's talk about this thing, how you see it and where do you see it going in the future, because obviously none of us sitting in this program here tonight are involved in what's going on now with the festival. We all know all about it. We all know what's supposed to be done with it, where it's supposed to go, but none of us is involved. And I'm wondering whether any of the organizers or the policymakers would ever think of including any of us to get our ideas and our input. Because if Wadix says it tried for how many years to get Gordon in there and they would resist that, I'm not so sure they would allow any of us to come in and help now. But Timothy, if you notice what Timothy said, it's very instructive. He said, by now, the European government, if they would have moved that from there and put it in private in the hands of people who know what they're doing. So Gordon, let me hear you.
Well, I'm very, very happy to listen to everyone. And I've been following her. I apologize. I was using a laptop with Wi-Fi and it was giving me some problems. So I moved to an office where the internet is direct. So I think everything is stable. I would have stayed all night to reminisce on all the good things that you guys have been speaking. But I know, for having worked with you, Sheridan, that the accent this evening is more about the way forward, the history and everything. It's a pity, though, that too much of the history is not known. But we can imagine that if we have staff members that are 35 years old today, it would be very difficult for them to know exactly how that whole festival got about. But something I would really like us to probably even discuss, if we have the time, is one of the problems that I identify with the festival right now. Not really problem, let's use the word issue. One of the issues is there's a constant debate between what constitutes Creole music and what's trending. Because I heard Mr. Piper saying that one of the reasons for bringing in big names, and the latest big name is, I heard the Prime Minister calling him Mr. Burna Boy. Mr. Burna Boy, is because he's trending. And probably Mr. Piper is right. He's trending. So this means that he will, my mind goes immediately on Ron Lander, who celebrated the first $1 million very, very early. So today we need artists that are trending to bring in some more millions. My suggestion has always been, why not bringing these people who trend? And as Wadix demonstrated, we have always brought in people who trend. We have always brought in Africans. And when I say Africans, various genres from the African continent. We've always done that before, from day one. But I think from a philosophical standpoint, it is not fair to refer to an African as being Creole. McMurray gave a linguistic definition of Creole. I am thinking from a cultural standpoint. Had I been an African, I would not like to be called Creole. So I think that if we need to bring in artists that are trending, we should invite them to our Creole festival, because we all know, whether it's linguistic, whether it's culinary, whether it's dress, we all know what is Creole. And this is what Wadix is saying. If it is not Creole, then remove the Creole. But I join Sheridan in saying that Wadix doesn't really mean to remove the Creole, but it's a form of protesting the fact that it is watered down. So what we can do is find a compromise between keeping our identity, keeping our brand, and inviting our cousins from Africa as red carpet, big fee, because they're bringing the numbers, guests, but not as headliners. If we have a sedan festival, and Toyota, they will come with the sedans and this one from all over the world, and then sedans get out of style. Everybody wants to drive SUVs. So we want to bring in an SUV to bring in the numbers. But we cannot put an SUV as the headline of our sedan festival. I hope the analogy can be understood.
No, the analogy is good. Good analogy.
So there is another thing is, tonight we're supposed to speak about cultural industries, but we're focusing on the World Creole Music Festival and probably on Creole music as the focus. And Wadix is probably the best defender of cadence calypso that you can find. And some people misunderstand what cadence calypso ought to represent in Dominica. Sometimes we say that Dominica has produced two genres. But cadence calypso never had a precursor. And Sheridan alluded to that. Before cadence calypso, we had traditional music, and our bands emulated bands from Trinidad. Swinging Stars was a glorified Byron Lee. The Gaylords was, to my opinion, better than the Merrymen. Probably I am being unfair to the Merrymen, but we didn't come up with a genre. So cadence calypso is the ultimate genre from which bouillon, zouk, soca, whatever had to follow up. So cadence calypso, one of the reasons that cadence calypso, in my opinion, should always be in the World Creole Music Festival, it's not about trending. And I like to use similarities and analogies. Cadence calypso is to Dominica what samba is for Brazil. Samba music is not at the top of the charts, but samba music is an integral part of Brazilian musical culture. Cadence calypso similarly should be that. the heartbeat, to use Wadix word, the heartbeat of our Creole music is cadence calypso. Every other thing is kidney, whatever organ, the heartbeat. The last thing I would like to say, because I don't want to be too long, is something that probably will take a whole program, is understanding the Creole music market, the global Creole music market. I have a feeling that the organization of the World Creole Music Festival from about the 4th year seemed to overlook the importance of the global Creole music market. It is spread all over the world. There are several millions of people. Mark mentioned RFO, and you know, many people might not know that at some point, when the question was asked a while ago if RFO was present, RFO might have been present, because there it's a very touchy thing to speak publicly on radio, but there is a little competition, not a little competition, there is media competition in Martinique and Guadeloupe between RCI in terms of radio, which is supposed to be the most listened to radio station, supposed to be, and RFO, which is government owned. And RCI is imposing to the committee, and I say committee and not commission. I remember the commission. I was proud to be a commissioner.
No, stick a pin there. Now, you see, you remember I mentioned the question of institution and organization and structure. You see, this is one of the things, you know, that I find very sort of retrogressive. You cannot tell me that you're going to go from a commission to a committee. You cannot tell me that you're going to go from an executive director, which is what we call Eddie Toulon, to some. I just don't get it. When the executive goes out there and speaks to his colleagues, you have to say that, well, I'm in a committee, and that cannot make sense. And that is why, you know, I was on a radio program, just to be very brief. I had a thing that I think Stephen D at DBS asked a few of us to do something. So I prepared something for him. And one of the things I said, and I said it again on Roots Connections on Wednesday night on Dr. Simone's program on Q95. I said that festival should be removed from where it is and put in the private sector. And one or two people like Sobers we said, no, man, you're joking. I said, that's what I'm telling you, and you'll agree with me in a couple of years' time. That's what I said to them. And I put in this thing for Stephen Dangleben that the Dominica Festivals Committee should be incorporated in the Dominica Festivals Corporation. And there's only one person I can think of, and it's on record. And there's only one person I can think of that can be the executive director of that, and that is Leroy Wadix. I have that on record. I think I sent Wadix a copy of that. The fact of the matter is, the reason why we're discussing this thing, analyzing where it's going to, and we're so concerned about it, that to the extent that Wadix even suggests let's take up the Creole, it's so upset that is the way it's going, is because of where it's located and who is doing it. Obviously, they don't have the same vision and so on, that we are the same commitment. The understanding is not there of the music. If Wadix, somebody like Wadix, is not allowed to assist in selecting the music and, you know, deciding which band should be there, how are you going to expand this thing? Because if the people don't understand the Creole, I mean, I'm pretty sure they can speak Creole, most of them, and they don't understand the music, the Creole music, they don't understand the Creole world, they don't understand the market, they don't understand the branding, they don't understand the promotion and how it has to reach the Creole world and reach the millions of people, They don't understand how these people have to feel that it is their own. Just the same way that Dominicans feel, say, this is our Creole festival. I just wanted to make that point because I think it's important what you're saying, Gordon, that this question of talking about a committee, there's no way that makes sense. And I don't understand how anybody could think of putting a committee to do a World Creole, a little committee to do a World Creole Music Festival. I'm sorry about that, Gordon. Go ahead.
No. It's very good that you can point that out because off and on I bring that up. As I said, I was proud to be a commissioner. When I went out to discuss with the media, I went there as a commissioner. And even that would give more respect. You know, people would respect you better than if you're a member of a committee. There's one thing that I hope that we can achieve this evening is to probably build a dialogue, because I do not want it to look like we are ganging up on the organizers, because they're doing a good job in certain respects. It's the bigger picture. And to use your words, Sheridan, the way forward seems bleak. It looks like a situation where tons and tons of money must be spent to maintain what was achieved in the first 3 years. Because Mark can talk to us about innovation as compared or in contrast to creativity. I don't know if we are experiencing a lot of innovation. It's the same format, 3 nights of pulsating rhythm, and there's more money. I think Dominica is richer now than then. So we're lacking on that. One last thing I would like to draw to our attention. I don't know if we have the time to discuss it. Well, it's 2 things. The first thing is one of the things that we always had in mind from the beginning, because I came in, I was not there in 95, 96, or the beginning of 1996, when you guys were planning. At that time, Calypso was no longer in my mind. To me, Calypso had already made its mark, and I was in television. I was hosting a show that was all over the United States. Well, all over the United States is an overstatement. On 15 PBS stations across the United States, which wasn't bad at all, and it was called Feel the World Beat, because world music was the big thing. And for the first time, that music from the south of the planet was taking over, the same way that Afrobeat seems to be taking over today. So I am happy that Mark and Wadix and Michael Fagan had the same idea of including world. I wasn't there, but I was on this show, Feel the World Beat. So what I felt is, in these early days, we thought that research and development had to be a part of the festival. In other words, the product is Creole music, irrespective of how you define it, narrowly or broadly. But you have to do research and development, because if Creole music died, then you would have to agree with Wadix and say, well, take off the Creole. So the organizers must ask themselves, and we are here, we are all available to assist in doing this research and development, or have we had any development of Creole music from the third year to now? How much money has been spent to develop Creole music? And then if you don't, for 20 years, you don't spend money on your product, you know, that defines you. It is quite normal to say, well, okay, that I don't like the product anymore. Is this? Let me go and get something else. So research and development, we must bring that back. We must bring back research and development. And I can say proudly that I am not in dreamland, because when I watched and listened to Jocelyn Berroa, there, I mean, that was, I mean, that justifies why Creole must be maintained. And what I said the last thing, but we have to start thinking of export. And before we, how do we export not only the festival, because the festival is a conduit. The product itself is Creole music, but our Creole music, how do we export it? And I don't think much work is being done on the exportation of our Creole music. And there's so much to be said, even from the local level, the radios, how radio plays an important role. Even in today's age of that kind of technology, radio is important. Wadix is the only one. Again, I mean, we have to work on that. We have to try to probably invite some of these people and work on exporting. There has been talk about Calypso, why there isn't Calypso. But Calypso isn't doing, the Dominica Calypso Association doesn't seem to do anything based on exporting the genre. Calypso seems to be very, very local. Mac Murray is here. Mac Murray is an expert in copyright. And we have a Calypso competition, an annual Calypso competition, where 70 points over 100 is awarded to the singer and none to the songwriter. People in show business might think that I'm joking. It's as if, analogy again, that in a Formula One race, the guy who drives for Ferrari gets the award for building a very good car. If the analogy is not understood, we have to talk a little bit more. But I must give up there now. Let somebody else speak.
And thanks for that, Gordon. You know, two things here right away before I go over to Ronald. One, we did have research and development in the formative years, in the first year. Who was it? Wadix. Wadix is the guy who was doing a lot of that. Of course, he involved you and him were involved, but you're involved in selection of bands too and record. But the point is, Wadix understood the music, he understood the Creole, and he lived that for years. I can vouch for that. I was in Salmon Trade with Wadik Ole and them and doing the thing. So I know about it. So I know he. You know, when you remove Wadix from the festival, you remove your research and development arm, right?
Let me just jump up jump in there just a second to support what you're saying. I don't know anyone in Dominica who knows what's trending in Creole music better than Wadix.
Well, that's
all.
That's the point. And secondly, in terms of the exporting, you remember earlier, Clark, we did in fact envisage that we would do a World Creole Music Festival World Tour, right? And that was supposed to take that Creole Music Festival to those same countries that we're talking about, so those areas that are involved in Creole. That was the whole idea, because you're talking about millions of people in that market. You know, when you talk about Brazil and you talk about Cuba and you talk about all these other countries and Morrison, you're talking about millions of people. So the whole idea was to take it out. And that is where, you see, I'm not sure, I don't remember who exactly made the point. But to me, if you took $1 million and you decide, okay, you know, we have 5 groups that are 5 bands that are really, really good in Creole music. We want to help them to get professional, to make them internationally competitive. What it is they need, let them tell us what they need. Is it instruments they need? Is it more training? Whatever, what is it that they need to develop? Because the product has to be developed, right? You have to keep developing the product, ensure that it maintains its international competitiveness. You want to have a competitive edge. You want the brand to always be, you know, refreshing and trending, as it were. So I think that too is part of what is missing. The bands are not getting the kind of support that they need to develop and grow to become what they need to become. And look, this idea of having the local bands, which are supposed to be the main thing, putting them on a sideshow and then have somebody who's the thing, and then our band come in as a sideshow. But you know, that is not the right thing to do. That's just the opposite of what the festival is all about. And if you notice, you know, whenever the local bands come on, they take the limelight, they steal the show. Even as they are now, they steal the show. You have a Sabantan coming, and his Sabantan going, you know, and have thousands and thousands of people in the park rocking everything. You have a Carlin XP and Colin and them doing a big thing out there in the. They're there, the talent is there. We just need to support it and develop it. But Ronald, I want to go to you. I know Wadix has some more that you want to say, but we haven't had a chance for you to come in. I don't know if you can unmute your mic, Ronald, because that's the problem we will have in the first time. Yeah, I think you're unmuted now. Go right ahead.
Yes, good night to everybody. It's a pleasure to be on the panel tonight. Mr. Gregoire, I see it's now 10 to 10. How long are we going for again?
Well, it depends on how young you feel and how long you can last.
Because I may have to press in my contribution.
Well, you're good at that.
I may have to do that. Just 2 quick observations. One of the persons who was very instrumental in promoting the festival in the early stages is Jeff Joseph. And we have not made mention of Jeff Joseph. Diana Koyol, Gordon Henderson, was a major factor in getting the World Creole Music Festival going, especially on the regional and international circuit. So we need to recognize that. But we also need to recognize the contribution of Jeff Joe. Jeff Joe made a tremendous contribution. Wadix, you made mention of Nasio Fountain. What is the first year that he played?
See, and Ronald, I'm glad that you're raising that, Ronald. I'm very glad that you're raising Nasio.
Because that year we couldn't get Nasio, and we got Morgan Heritage, and that was a major launching pad for Morgan Heritage. They only had one song, "Down by the River."
It was 99. But Kassav, Gordon said something earlier. I just wanted to just a pause, just a slight pause. 1 second. Kassav, before the World Creole Music Festival, was almost dead, and possibly Mark and maybe Gordon may know. Volta Fast with Jeff would mash up Kassav anywhere, and when they were brought to the festival for the second year, that gave them a new life. I remember that clearly because myself and Ezra, brought Volta Fast to Dominica based on their popularity in the French Antilles. I witnessed Volta Fast mashing up Kassav in Guadeloupe several times. And we're talking about before the World Creole Music Festival. So when Kassav eventually got their opportunity the second year to perform, that gave them a new life, which they never turned back on until a couple of the brothers died.
And the same is applicable to Morgan Heritage. That was the launching pad for them when they replaced Nasio Fountain. I think that was in 97 or 98 when they replaced Nasio Fountain, and they came to perform. And Papa Morgan said that very, very clearly. His children were very enthusiastic, and they only had one song. And now Morgan Heritage is a major band producing a lot of music. And they visited Dominica several times after this. Another area, Wadix, Eddie died in 2001. 2001. You said
it's Rosie. I think that Rosie died in 2000.
Yeah, Rosie died in 2000.
Rosie died in 2000, sorry, and then Eddie died the following year.
Yeah, because 2000 was the most...
You're correct.
The most challenging year for me in the festival was 2000. The first 3 years, they were challenging, but then I had the full support of the board. But in 2000, when the government changed, there are certain board members, for some reason or the other, they didn't want me around. And they made my life very, very difficult. And that was the only year we did not have audited accounts. Because as soon as the festival was over, the Monday, I got a letter asking me to take my leave to the end of my contract. And I was the financial controller and chairman. Who's going to balance the books? And that's a businessman making that decision. You know, that's very unfortunate. I came to the corporation in 1997. I came into the National Development Corporation in 1997 as a director of industry. And the focal areas of my strategic development plan was agro-processing, tourism plant development, information and communication technology, and small business development. However, in the first quarter of 1997, I was invited to a meeting. Mr. Gregoire invited me to a meeting to discuss the World Creole Music Festival. By that time, the name was firmed up to the World Creole Music Festival. And when I went to that meeting, I immediately diagnosed the World Creole Music Festival as a platform for developing cultural industry. And a major pillar for that development was Kada Slipso. Kada Slipso was a rich, colorful music, a music that had several dimensions, and the variants that came up after that, after Gordon and Exile came up with Kada Slipso, the variants that came up from Gramax, Groovers, Below Men, and other entities. It was very, very powerful. What we were trying to do at this time is to combine the other Creole expressions with Kada Slipso to form a Creole product that we could bring in persons into Dominica to enjoy and to participate in, and also to export those products. We proceeded to engage other entities in the Kadas world, in the Creole world, like Haiti Kompa, Guadeloupe Zouk, Sukus from Africa, Zydeco music, and also reggae music. Our loud thinking, when I was working with the committee, working group, the management committee at the NDC, was to develop a cultural industry to stimulate economic activity in Dominica, ensuring optimal impact on our economy. I'm not too sure at this point in time that we are doing this. Over the last 2 decades, what I've been observing over the last 2 decades, the focus on developing a cultural industry has been reduced, and what we've been doing over the last few decades is developing free nights of jam. There is no effort, no energy to develop a particular musical art form or to continue developing a musical art form that we created, Kada Slipso, and then bouillon music. We're now looking to involve other entities And as Wadix correctly said, this year we only had one Cadas act, that's Midnight Rovers. You had 14 foreign artists over 3 nights in the festival. Who's making the money? Burna Boy came in here by a private jet. Burna Boy, I understood, commanded a significant amount of money. And I'm certainly sure when the research is done, what Burna Boy took out was much more than what he put in. And this is not what we want. We want people to come here to add value to what we're doing. Another area of mismanagement was the complimentary tickets. What time complimentary tickets? Complimentary tickets were all over the place. And people like me, who was a pioneer in the festival, did not get a complimentary ticket. People like Gordon, people like Sheridan, Gregoire should be given airline tickets to come to Dominica and be celebrities at the festival, because we were the ones that started the activity. But we are not being recognized. Consequently, the quality of output is deteriorating. Yes, we are having 3 nights of jam, people are enjoying themselves for 3 nights, but we're not developing a particular cultural industry. And this is very critical for development. I want to specially commend Creole Heartbeat, Wadix, and Gordon. Creole Heartbeat has been involved in developing a Cadas Calypso festival, and that was very impressive. And one of the things that impressed me most is Fitzroy performing in the festival under challenging circumstances. That's a local celebrity that we gave the recognition. We saw several bands performing in the Cadas Calypso competition, and there was a high quality of performances. And then we move across to the World Creole Music Festival, we only had one of those bands involved in there. And this was pure mismanagement. What if you were speaking about taking out the word Creole from the World Creole Music Festival? I think what you want to say is that the World Creole Music Festival is mismanaged. It's mismanaged. What we were attempting to do and what we were trying to move in the right direction, now persons are just enjoying themselves and collecting a little pocket change for Dominica. Like everything else that's deteriorating in Dominica. And it's very, very unfortunate. Also, the school competition. You did a school competition in was it Portsmouth? And that was very, very impressive.
Right.
The winner said, boy, I always knew I was going to win.
And very, very interestingly, Brohim, the sign man, is in negotiations with one of the producers here to get the first 5 places recorded, so it can be distributed among the radio stations and the media platforms.
Very good.
But Ronald, I must add something there, because I mentioned it earlier. I just want to mention it again. I mean, this initiative, I think I'm even more impressed with the school one than with the other one, because what it means is that these kids, if you keep doing that every year, you're going to have kids now who are coming out, into that music. And you don't have to sell it to them anymore, because children live what they learn, right? And they learn what they live.
Socialization.
And when I listen, some of these kids were interviewed, and I listened to their interview, and I listened to their enthusiasm. The fact they knew who was writing for them, many of them said Gordon helped them with their songs, They knew who was writing for them. They understood what the meaning of the lyrical content of their songs. And they were totally immersed in the music. And when I listened to that young man, in fact, he was not the only one when they were interviewed. All of them said they were going to win, right? Said they were going to win. But that young fella, I can see this guy becoming a big thing. I mean, if he keeps it up, and somebody should make sure he keep it up. But one thing I want to mention, Ronald, quickly, and I think Mark, I want to put it to Mark and Gordon. I don't know if you all can remember during the course of our discussions, one of the things that we felt that we should do, we needed to develop the World Creole Music Festival to such a level that it became the thing, the place to go when you have all these promoters and these managers who have the new artists. they would want to come and launch their artists at the World Creole Music Festival to make sure that is where they see the same way that I think it was Wadix who said that Kassav was kind of dying out. And it's only when they came on the Creole music, the WCM platform, that a sort of new life was breathed. I think we had discussed that. I can remember clearly that this is where we should, so artists and their managers and producers come, and then send them free of charge. No charges, because we are going to help them to become somebody. I don't know if you remember that discussion, Gordon Omar.
But what a very important thing was development of a total product. The bands played, and in between the bands, we had our dance. We had our different Creole expressions. We've not experimented with pulling a screen across the stage. So what was happening at the back with the changeover of the bands, you could not see. What all you're saying was the belly, the quadrille, and we're a total product. And quite a number of persons, because of those presentations, got opportunities to go to Guadeloupe, to go to Martinique, to go to other countries, and to make some money. But no, reach a stage in between, you have DJ comes in and this is my Kadas people, this is my reggae people. In between.
No, I'm going to say it as it is again. As a matter of fact, I was at the festival, zero, and I want to repeat it, zero Kadas Lipso music, zero, none at all, absolutely none, for all 3 nights during the changeover. And what amazed me is a particular band was promoting Carnival in Dominica 2023 for about 10 minutes. Every single song that was played for that 10 minutes was from Trinidad. The same country that celebrates the Carnival on the same date as us, with all the music and according to Gordon, so we should be the best in Carnival music in the world. And with all the Carnival music that we possess in Dominica, that particular DJ promoted only Trinidad music for people to come down to Dominica for 2023. Before we forget, I just want to really touch on, the memory of people like Eddie Toulon and Cynthia Ailey at the office, and the late Jamala played a critical role, especially in the educational aspect. People like Jeffrey Brisbane, you would deal with the bars and make sure everything is under control. And later, one of the bosses at the festival, Oliver St. John, Sobers is not the reverse. Steve Hyacinth is the only member. I just wanted to just touch on Mr. Gregoire. The only original member still with the DFC or Dominica Festivals Committee is Steve Hyacinth. We had a discussion this year. People like Michael Fagan. There was another Michael Fedel. Michael Fedel. We always seem to forget Michael Fedel, but he was very critical in the early days. Dennis Joseph also. As a matter of fact, the same programs that I do have at DBS Radio on a Friday and Saturday was named by Dennis Joseph to promote the music of the festival, and the same trending Creole music would be actually played and showcased on those 2 programs. Gregoire Abes, and very instrumental again, was Steinberg Henry in doing the research, the Federation, and also the various symposiums we had. The intellectual aspect of the festival was a major aspect, which we could actually, if we had continued that, I think Dominica as the Mecca, the headquarters of the Creole Federation. Let's try to imagine the amount of dividends we would have gotten in terms of moving the festival to the various destinations. I mean, the export we're referring to, if that federation was there, just see how easy we could move to Seychelles. Gordon had a particular contact where we could get the festival performed in France this year, to get the particular
festival, but
major band, all-star band, and various vocalists, and we export the festival, whether it is Bouillon, Dominican component, I find the intellectual, and I will repeat, we in Dominica, and I want to say we have a serious comprehension problem. Gordon mentioned the disparity between the word Creole and culture, and what we perceive to be Creole and culture when we want or when it suits us. But I think the intellectual aspect which we had, and which we played a lot of emphasis on, is no more. Zero. You only hear about the World Creole Music Festival somewhere around June. I think this thing should be 24/7. I think whoever is responsible should be dealing with the World Creole Music Festival from October to October. I think whoever is the team, deal with the festival, focus on the festival, deal with the festival, let team know, brave it, mark it, think of the trends in the festival. And not just a committee, deal with the festival, right after that, jump into carnival, right after that, jump into jazz, and after jazz, you're thinking of Creole Festival. That way, we can never get to where we visioned because we are too busy focusing on each event that we cannot focus on truly what can be derived from the World Creole Music Festival and reach the millions of people Gordon keeps speaking about, and even allow our musicians to get the millions that Sheridan is talking about if we can export the music.
Yeah, and one I want to just conclude with a futuristic type of analysis. But before going there, I want to make an observation for Creole Heartbeat. And you all are doing a very good Friday morning program.
Yeah.
But I think you should have a Creole host doing that program. You want a young lady speaking English doing the program? And
we do have a Creole host. Milia is part of the team. Milia.
Often, but the main person is an English speaking girl.
Yeah.
Okay, but Milia is very good at Creole. But the last part, because I'm summarizing my presentation, I would love to have presented for a longer period of time. But the last part I would like to look at, how do we resuscitate the Calypso? How do we resuscitate Calypso? And where do we get the funds from for resuscitating Calypso? And Mr. Mari may be able to make one or two observations on that. Birthday 25.
Okay, well,
birthday 25.
Yeah.
25th birthday of independence. So a collection was put together with 4 CDs. I don't know what responsible for so doing. But what I would like to see happening is that if we can work together with the past Calypso stars to put together 3 CDs, 3 high quality CDs, and those 3 high quality CDs, we could sell them to generate revenue for us to have various workshops for different people in developing the Calypso. So the sales from those CDs, we can have workshops for different types of musicians. We can bring down Cotton. We can bring down Fitzroy. Fitzroy is still there. Use Cornell, use Freddie for different types of musicians. We get the bands, the current bands involved. Potent T, you get the different bands, even Asa Bantan, you get them involved, and you try to emphasize them into those workshops so you can increase your repertoire. If you can enhance your repertoire, your demand is going to increase. You're going to be appealing to more people. So we need to get that Calypso going through this development of income and having those workshops for different musicians. In the main objective is to influence the involvement of Calypso in all Dominican musical bands. Yes, your bouillon is your thing, but there is nothing wrong in including Cadas as part of your repertoire. And I see some bands like Signal Band has a good component of Calypso, a young band, maybe 4 or 5 fellas, and they're doing very well. I would like to see these fellas develop into an orchestra. There's a young lady called Abia. And Abia is putting out some nice Calypso music. She does reggae. Nothing is wrong with that. But repertoire is how you're going to be appealing to a large amount of people. Mr. Gregoire, I'll stop you. I have much more to say, but because of the time limits, I will stop.
Yes, I'm sure.
I just want to say something. I'll go ahead there. To disagree with Gordon a bit there about something he said about that we need big stars to bring numbers. That actually is not true, because I happen to run an accommodation establishment, and there's this interregnum, if you like.
I use the conditional. we may need.
Okay,
May need.
we may need, but I will say we do not need. Right. I'll explain it. I was saying I happen to run an accommodation establishment. Up till 2019, as soon as the festival of this year is...
Mark, can I just interrupt you 1 second? Lambi, were you trying to make a signal to take a call or something?
No. I just wanted
No,
to
no.
say this.
I was talking to Lambi. No,
Yes,
Lambi.
there's someone on the
all
line.
right.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Caller, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening to that illustrious panel. I'm really enjoying the conversation. I heard everybody up in arms essentially, and I think it's justified in terms of what the intent of this commission, I would say, in Gordon's word, collective of commissioners. But in terms of Dominica and the Creole culture, are we at the point now where the culture itself has surpassed the festival instead of Creole content and emphasis? Because and did you guys envision the festival in the context of, say, how it was presented this week, or if you have to put the collectives together in terms of Creole? We essentially had an expo in some regard, Mr. Sheridan, you know? So I just want to, what is the plan from here? I hear a bunch of commissioners that I don't think any other crew is more well-versed to talk about this and to recommend. Is there some process moving forward? Because from this week, I feel like a success is still there, almost in the making, other than what Wadix really makes a fuss about, and I think it's very justified, the Creole part. But I'm asking, Dominica as a country in terms of Creole seems to have arrived at a new point that we've never had before. So what is the plan from here? Is something going to be put forward? We know we talk, but on this issue, are we really going to give the collective of minds that are there? Is there going to be a process moving forward to try to address this current crop that's in there and to try to get something done to rectify what is deficient in the Creole? Because I think Dominica right now is really a Creole country like it has never been before. So I think, I just want to know what you guys think in that regard. Is something going to come out of this? Other than just,
Let me just say something quickly before I go back to Mark. Lambi, let us know if you have any other calls. But quickly, I think what we're all saying here tonight, yes, we're doing some constructive criticism. Yes, we're going back and look at the beginning, the way it was, the way it should be going forward. And I think what we're all saying is that we are available to the present organizers. We are available we can share the knowledge that we have, whatever experience and expertise that we, whatever ideas and vision that we have. I'm pretty sure that all of us would be happy to make ourselves available to them. But I also think I'm hearing something else coming out of this discussion here tonight. I'm hearing it from Ronald, I'm hearing it from Gordon, I'm hearing it from Mark, I'm hearing it from Wadix. There is something already going on because the Creole Heartbeat program is doing something. The competition in the Portsmouth School is doing something. What I think Ronald is saying, gentlemen, we should organize to get more of that done. Remember when Julius Timothy said, by now they would have put this thing, developed the Dominica Festivals Corporation. And that corporation would be doing all of those things that we're talking about there, with somebody like Wadix at the head. Because if Wadix can do it in the Portsmouth School and do the Creole, he can do it as the executive director of a Dominica Festivals Corporation, which is year-round, working towards that, working to develop the music, develop the artists, develop the product, develop the market, looking at the world tour, looking at the awards, the annual Creole Music Awards thing, bring all the big stars down and have the awards headquartered in Dominica. You'll recall that one of the things we had looked at was the possibility of building a permanent location for the World Creole Music Festival. And that permanent location would be like a museum, because you would also have theaters in there, a lot of sitting accommodation, a lot of people, but you'd have shops, the Creole shops. All these Creole countries, we help them to put all their products, all their cuisine, all everything. So any tourist ship coming, if Disney would decide to bring a cruise ship there for a weekend, let the people just go there and buy stuff, So all of that was part of the vision, right? And especially the world tour part of it, to sell that and to sell product along. So
I want to just come in just slightly, Mr. G. I also heard Mr. Timothy and Zed Okay, my brethren said, referring to a level of success, and I gather it's because of the amount of people that came for this year's edition.
The numbers.
No, we hadn't had a festival for a couple of years. It's one. People made up their minds, at least according to the Minister of Tourism, 80% of flights were booked before the lineup. It wasn't me. She said it. I have a song bite of it. 80%, which means people made up their mind. Dominica is open. COVID is over. Nothing really is going on in the Caribbean as such. Dominica around now is the place because of the World Crowd Music Festival. One of the things that we are forgetting is the legacy of this festival, the reputation of the festival. Didn't just end up this year, Quite a bit of work was done to bring the festival to that level. Now, another important area we keep forgetting, 1 million people across us. The amount of work, well, Ron mentioned Jeff earlier, Ophelia, Gordon, Ezra, myself, we did to convince our French friends that we once helped you, and it's now time for you to come down to Dominica to enjoy Dominica like us. Dominica once had a miserable reputation. God has helped to revert that. I can't recall I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the kind of reputation Dominica had. And because of the success of Kadas Lipso, that changed. You understand where I'm coming from? I am fortunate to have interviewed several of the returning French people. And this is very critical. You cannot have 10,000 people on island or visitors on island with whoever that is intent on coming to the festival. And there is no survey done. You understand? It's because you already tell yourself, even before the festival, it is a success. I interviewed the French people because I am part of the ferry service. The younger folks seem to have had a good time. But the older French who have the spending power did not enjoy the festival. Those I interviewed. Several of them. So while we boasting and beating our chests, it's not everyone that visited, but then where's the data to prove that? Because we are beating our chests, it doesn't like everyone enjoy. I know several people that told me they did not enjoy the festival. They returned today, they returned yesterday, they returned on Sunday. They did not enjoy the festival from the same French Antilles. So it simply means it's not all that glitters is gold. Yeah, you see the thousands, but whether the thousands came this year and enjoyed this year and will return. Where's the data? Where's the formula put in place to gather those data? Are we just taking it for granted, or we already have our speeches of the success before the edition is over? So this is a critical. Where's the data? We are in 2022. How are you going to prove the direction you need to prove the festival when you don't even know what aspect of the festival people enjoyed? I can guarantee you, as a matter of fact, every single French person I spoke to enjoyed Joycelyn Bewal. 20% of the French people I spoke to enjoyed Burna Boy. What that should say? No, I'm just doing my personal survey because I'm interested when I make a recommendation based on my personal survey. But what about a national survey? Every returning person, while they're waiting to board or what, should have 4-5 questions to answer. You enjoy Dominica, you enjoy the festival, which band you preferred? When you return? Simple. Where was that? A golden opportunity to gather the data to indicate to you, at least from the French Antilles, what they enjoyed and what they didn't.
And more importantly, Wadix, I would like to see in the not too distant future audited financial statements. How well did the festival do financially? Because for quite a while, we've not seen audited financial statements. And this was a way of fundamental...
I think Mark Barry may have the answer to that, Rod.
Yeah.
Let me see if I answer that there. Wadix made a very important point. This is the point I was about to make before.
Right. Exactly.
Is that the people book my place the week after the festival has taken place, before they know whether there is a festival in fact or who is performing. So I said who is performing is almost an irrelevance as to how many people come. And the fact that we have been shifting the music away from its core and going towards so-called big stars who come and cheat, give us a playback, first stuff like Wyclef Jean Akon did in 2016, makes no difference, and it actually is counterproductive. I'll explain to you why. The major benefit from the festival are what they call in economic externalities. Let's say car rental, hotel, food, etc., etc. But an expense is made to generate that revenue. Yes? When the revenue increases by 50%, but the revenue, when you check it, increased by 10%, the return on your expenditure has declined. And that's what has been happening with the festival. Yes, the amount of money you put out relative to the amount of benefit you get has been declining, precisely because we pay these people who are not really necessary, these huge sums of money to come and bring 10 more people also to the festival. Yeah, and you made a very important point, Wadix. The age group of the persons who are coming is of tremendous importance. At a meeting that we had at Alliance Française, was broadcast on the other radio station, Gordon's son made a reference to a festival in Miami called Coachella. Well, Coachella is intended for the younger audience. Their price to get in there is $30 US, $40 US. Rolling Stones play at a similar event in the same city. The price is $1,000. Yes, and I was speaking with somebody in the festival thing. That I was telling them you can have a VIP or VVVVVIP where the price is €1,000. I made it in euros, €1,000 per person. And you would get people who will buy, particularly from Martinique. From Martinique. But the only thing is, your festival has to be more artistic and less entertainment.
Yeah.
If you follow what I mean, the difference between art and entertainment, there's a difference. The people,
and Mark,
yeah.
One of the things that continue to disturb me is after the formula was set, and very early the formula was set for 5-6 band per night, ratio. Where most bands, even if some of the bands may not even have enough time, but the majority of bands will have adequate time to perform their repertoire. This had 7, 8, and possibly 9 bands per night. So you were forced to chop down bands to 45 minutes. I mean, what can you get? For instance, Midnight, let's take Midnight Groovers. Midnight Groovers started early with some fast music. Then they went down to a slow repertoire, Milk and Honey, and then the little section with Michael Henderson. And by the time they start to bring up to their main hits, to climax, every band wants to be able to climax. They have to be off the stage. They have to be off the stage. Now, what are you saying to Midnight Groovers? To me, that is gross disrespect. The festival is taking place in Dominica. We know that we have one representative, at least that one cadence representative. Allow them at least an hour. At least allow them their repertoire. You know what it is? You musicians out there would know what it is to practice your repertoire based on your contractual arrangement. You are given a contract for whatever minutes and you practice your repertoire to that. And while you on stage the night, all of a sudden, you know where your progression in songs because you want to climax with your favorite song or your biggest song. And then all of a sudden, the stage manager have to tell you one more song. Now you have a progression of songs to climax to your number one song. What are you going to do? And that continues to happen regularly because of the poor. What are you doing if 8 or 9 bands per night on a festival?
Yeah, and it's also the low value that's placed on the Dominican performers.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly
the expenses on performers is about 5% that's made on Dominican artists.
Yes, because you have to pay hotel.
Yeah,
fare,
right.
And
the organizers are not aware of something else. Dominica being a small island developing state, the question of foreign exchange is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have artists who are taking 90 to 95% of the performance fees who live abroad, they take the money, the foreign exchange abroad. Yeah. So you have to, if you're doing it for economic purposes, but think like economics and not think like a man who's having a party to get drunk and play the
which sadly is what I have been. I noticed this year because I believe after 22 editions, let us evaluate the craft, the actual craft of musicians and who have benefited and elevated and crossover from the World Creole Music Festival. What collabs, what opportunities are there? Let's say you bring in whoever you're bringing in, the best of whatever. What collabs have been, derived from the best of ever, whatever, with a Dominican?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Because the Dominican musicians are not considered as worthy. And there's an extraordinarily stupid expression. That is to say, we have there's no such thing as international artists. Jesus Christ.
And local acts. Once you make it's an international stage. And to me, once you are part of the lineup, you automatically upgrade. You automatically upgrade. So that stupid is about local things.
Right.
So and Mark, I just want to make it that point.
Yeah. Okay.
If you are an expert on your genre, regardless, you can bring a million burner, but you can't go and play Groovers, because Groovers is the expert on your ass. So you showcase to the world, if it's that you decide in the best of your, so you're showcasing to the world the best of Afrobeat and the best of your music, 45 minutes. So the visitor will get the best of Afro in their mind and the least of what belongs to you. When we spend hours to decide and to tell the people and to educate the people, one of the main reasons for the festival. Look, Magda said zero.
And Wadix, what happened on Sunday night when Patrice Roberts, a band was on the stage, she had been announced by the MC.
Yes.
She was ready to go. She's hyped up, ready to go. They come and tell her, get off the stage.
Yes.
Burna Boy is going to play for you.
You don't do that.
You don't do that. You have to have manners and understanding.
This is gross disrespect.
It's more than gross disrespect. This is Philistinism or Cretinism. I'm not sure which one, but it's one of them, or both. Philistines and Cretans. Yeah. Who do that sort of thing. I personally, by the way, on Monday morning sent an email to people I know in the music business in Trinidad who will get the message to her to apologize on behalf of myself, my wife, the music fraternity in Dominica, and the Dominican thinking public for what happened to her on Sunday night. That should not have happened. There's no excuse for that.
Just before we leave, I want to touch on the Burna Boy issue as a promoter, as a private promoter myself. First of all, I think it is bad practice if you have an artist you say that is supposed to sell the festival and try to get him on the same evening he's performing in a place like Dominica. To me, that is bad practice already. To decide that you want to get that particular artist, he is the one that everything was not that particular artist before, and you want to get that artist on island to perform in the night on that same night in Dominica. You're taking a risk. That's a risk. To me, if you want to get that high-profile artist to get Dominica now to get returns from that artist, you get the artist at least a day before. So whether this Kempinski hotel that get some level of promotion with whatever you have there, or whatever you can have time bring him in Dominica by one of our, whatever, to take out a picture, whether it's a picture, because of the cost to get that man to come there. But trying to get the man in. The same night he performs. He was the best thing, he was the greatest thing before, and when it doesn't appear, is he that is the problem. My brother, if you are a promoter, you take the praises, but if it doesn't work, you have to take the responsibility. You have to take the responsibility. I have seen Curacao on the man's site. I saw Tobago. The man came to Dominica. I have seen nothing. Before I left here, nothing about Dominica. So it's like he came, play Dominica, and nothing. So where's the international PR or we say we were going to get?
Well, you saw Zurich on his site after Dominica, but nothing on Dominica. But Zurich is on his site, which is where
Zurich is on his site, but nothing on Dominica. Which means to me, something is wrong.
Yeah.
But as the promoter, you must take responsibility, because you remember, you took the risk. If you knew the man is performing somewhere else and you decide to bring him in your country, you're taking a risk. That is your risk. You decide, boss, you'll have time finish and private jet, you're taking a risk. If the risk to me is 50-50, especially in a place like Dominica, we know it's not an international airport. So the risk is 50-50.
Now when
you take that 50-50 risk and it doesn't work, it is your responsibility.
Wadix, let me just say this. I think we have to answer Zed's question. And we have to answer that. I don't think we can answer it tonight. Zed saying is, in terms of the way forward, what is the recommendation? I think we may have to do this again to prepare a different show, as Gordon was saying, on the way forward. Because I think we all have to keep ourselves available in case we are called upon to assist or advise or help in any way. I think we should do that. Secondly, I think we should definitely think about way forward, because I believe the Creole Music Festival is something that must go on and must grow into what it really is supposed and was envisaged to become. All right. You want to take a quick call, Lambi, before we?
Yes, someone on the phone. Caller, please go ahead quickly.
Yes. Good evening, caller. I agree with Wadix, and I will tell you now, Burna Boy is in St. Martin resting for an event on Saturday night. So I agree with Wadix. If you're bringing in somebody to sell your country or to do some public relations, you need to bring him ahead of time. Good evening. I'm listening.
Yes, and thanks for that.
Okay, let me just say something about the play in there.
I'm going
in the music business, if I book you to play here in Roseau, you have to black out 6 months before, 6 months after you play my event in a 200-mile radius. The idea that you come and play here, next day you play in St. Martin, that is amateurish nonsense.
Of course.
You agree to that.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting value, you're not getting value for money.
Right.
You're not getting value. Because, I mean, the man has people that in other places close by know he's coming your way, have no reason to be compelled to come to your destination.
So what I want us to do, I don't want us to leave the impression as if all we're doing is going to criticize, but we're not coming up with something constructive about the way forward. I think we don't have time to do that tonight.
Ron did some of that, Ron did some of that. Gordon did some of that.
But not enough.
I would just like to say one thing.
Not enough.
That the decor of the venue this year was pleasing to me.
Yes,
and I think it was an improvement from what we've had before. Right.
And the bringing back of the stage, was very good.
And the stage
layout, the VVIP section, I think it was fantastic. It gave a real festival feeling. I had some issues with the sound system which cut off, as if I can't recall which year that we ever had sound system cutting off. It's a while now we haven't had lights, generator going off on the lights. But these things can happen in show business. These things can happen where a generator just malfunction. But these should be recorded and remedied, because this is, a world-class festival. It is said that it is a world-class festival, and you hardly ever see this kind of hitches in world-class events on television.
Yes, so here's what I have to say. I'm going to come around and first take our final closing remarks in a moment, but before I did that, I wanted to go back to Gordon, because we've had some discussion since he last spoke, And I'm just wondering if he has any final thoughts, because to my mind, we need to do this again, because we need to really come up with some concrete recommendations about the way forward. Not just, it's for the country, because remember, this thing is Dominica, you know. We're talking about Dominica's music, we're talking about Dominica's cultural industries. And so it seems to me that we are concerned that we started something. We would like to establish that legacy there and to make sure that thing works, and that 100 years from now, that is still in Dominica. And what I would really like to see happen is for a few of our musicians to become millionaires. Why is it that Burna Boy can come here in a jet, you know, and this guy is worth millions now? And our musicians, what happened to Michael Henderson, you know, or any one of our Carlin XP or Benji, any of our performers? Why is it that they cannot become? We can make them millionaires if we do it right. That's the point. Okay. So I think we need to come back again and look at some recommendations for the way forward. And so, but Gordon, I wanted you to sort of, you know, as before I take the round of closing remarks, any further thoughts you had on some of this in terms of the forward-looking thing?
Yeah, we took a look at the organization, some of the flaws, some of the ideas that we have. But I think that the music, the musicians and the music, we have to direct some attention to them, because we are very sentimental in Dominica, and we like to applaud certain things that do not count in the world of show business. I am thinking of, you know, the bouillon music, for example. It may appear to be exported, but in fact, from what I've noticed over the last, because bouillon music is about 30 years old, so it's not a matter of novelty. But when we export the bouillon music, it's usually to Dominicans living abroad. And I say bouillon, but it could be applied to swinging stars. A lot of the music that we export, calypso and so on, we export it to Dominicans living abroad, the so-called diaspora. Now, the promoters in the diaspora, well, I'm an old man, 50 years in the business. In the next few days, I'm going to fly to South Africa, to Reunion, to Seychelles, to perform. There must be a reason with the same card and slip so. But I notice that we do not really have promoters in the diaspora. We have associations, and the performances are in backyards and that sort of thing. So I think we need to assist that area. Well, I don't want to be too long, but I think that the musicians cannot develop their act if their hope is to tour, to do a backyard tour in Miami to New York and that sort of thing. We need to improve it. And Sheridan was talking about, so long ago we were speaking of doing a world tour of not only Dominican music, but Dominicans will benefit from it, but Creole music. Wadix knows that we're in discussion with the DDA, DFC to do it this year. For some reason, it wasn't done. But the Haitian, for everybody knows that one Haitian guy died on the stage 2 or 3 weeks ago performing compa music in front of 19,000 people in Paris. Now, the largest collection of Martinicans and Guadeloupeans, the biggest population of these two people combined, happen to be in Paris. That is our market.
Yeah,
But we're not doing anything with it.
And just to mention, the venue where the event was held is Esplanade de la Défense. Right?
And not this one, because they have two of them with the same name. This one was the Bercy one.
Okay,
Esplanade de la Défense is the other one where Cassav was with a capacity of 40,000.
Right. But Bercy is a recognized concert venue in the city of Paris. It's not a backyard. Yeah, and we can play there as well.
Of course.
That's not difficult to do, really.
Exactly.
And there's a misconception that unless you play music in the United States, you are playing music. But in fact, the United States is the worst place to play music to make money, unless you happen to find yourself being a superstar. That is how it is in the United States. France, which has about 70 million people, pays and collects about the same amount of copyright fees as the entire United States has 300 million people. And so France is actually a better country to play music in than the United States.
We need to educate our musicians because they prefer to emulate soca, Wadix spoke. Or in other words, they prefer to be a soca star than a cadence star.
Exactly.
I would put it a follower instead of one to open the trends like we did. I mean, we Cadas had a market. I mean, Cadas, there's a market out there. You exponents of the Cadas, the legends of Cadas, they brought the music to the four corners of the globe. That the market is there, and it is not backyard in New York or in Miami. I heard and saw Shelly this year saying he would never play for certain promoters because of where he was given to play. But very importantly, there are certain things I see that is very good about this year's festival, but I was heartened that we eliminated the grassroots. You see, the grassroots, we eliminated them, and I think somehow that we should be more inclusive. I walked around because I love looking at the whole city. You could hardly get a place to park. But the distance, I saw real poor vendors, they could hardly make a money. Now, these are the same people that if they make a good festival earning, they're going to have a good Christmas. So they're not going to beg you for ham and turkey. They're going to have a good Christmas. So we have to get some way, whether it's an organized way, to include them even if it's on the perimeter, instead of throwing them on Lagor, right? Lagor. And the festival is taking place in the festival. We encourage them in an organized way before, because they are also people. It's not everyone that have $150 to go to the park. There are some people that don't, but they enjoy Creole music, so they will come and hang around, and that is what these people earn. That is how they earn. Why eliminate them? It's not because they are extreme poor, why they have to resort to try to sell a bake and a chicken to put them that far. Get them organized. If they need to get their necessary health, whatever they need to get, and if they need to pay even $50, put something in place for them so that they can vend on the perimeter in an organized way, instead of putting them right Kennedy Avenue where, people cannot even, at least, and the bars at the park were overwhelmed. All the bars at the park were overwhelmed during the intermissions. What are we doing about these people? Because these are also people. That's where I'm from. I'm from the ghetto borders. You'll have to call for them. Music, the issue just before I leave, and I want to say, I am for what Mr. Gregoire said, that we are available. I am available. I don't think I need to do anything else in my life but to continue promoting Creole music. But we have to do it in a serious way, and we have to understand the product that we're trying to sell or to export. Right now, I think we are confused, totally confused. We believe that we are having a better festival by allowing the majority of the money to be exported and depend on everybody else saying they have a good time of partying instead of having a lot of the million people in Guadeloupe and Martinique that have millions of dollars that want to come and spend, not only for the 3 nights of party, but to spend year-round. If you present decent activities to them and a variety during the World Creole Music Festival to entice them to come, because I know them, I've lived there, I understand them, I know they have money. They came this year and did not enjoy the festival. Because why? We're focusing on the gentitash, 18 and 35, and forgetting everybody else in Dominica and out of Dominica that are 35 and over. That's my last words.
All right. Now, I want to just take our last sort of closing remarks. I'm going to go around the table. Ronald, let me start with you first. You're the youngest among us. So you're and the better looking too as well.
Wadix is younger than me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Wadix is younger than me.
So why are you looking so much younger than him then?
But Mr. Gregoire, what I think is that we've got a serious socialization problem in Dominica where music is concerned. You listen to the radio stations and you hardly hear Calypso. You hardly hear local music. All you hear is foreign music, hip hop, reggae. So what I would like to see happening, let's start with Q95 and to use your influence to allow Q95 to play more local, especially Calypso. We've got some classical, melodious Calypso done by Gordon, by Gramax, by Billowman. We need to hear more of that to socialize our people. This is why I came up with the idea of the free CDs. You don't have access, you don't have any access to local music. So if you could do those free CDs, work with the musicians, do those free CDs, you generate revenue that you can now plow into workshops to improve the development of Calypso. And this is a challenge for Curl Heartbeat. Curl Heartbeat should consider that. Okay, thank you very much.
No, your point well taken. I'm sure we'll all work on that. I mean, this is why we're here to get recommendations. But you know, Mark, your closing remarks. You want to unmute your mic?
Eh bien, pour terminer, faut me dire en bas là. Mais c'est un chien là, oui. Et chien là, oui, pas qu'un mètre. Quand ça, chien là, oui, pas jamais.
That's it for Mark. All right. Mark,
I will follow Mark and we'll do exactly like Mark. Au canot qui coule par pêcheur d'autres naviger. Bon.
What? So Gordon, well, you'll have to translate that for them now. Oh boy, your mic is muted, Gordon. So you have to find a word here tonight.
I was unmuting it in the wrong place. We had two Creole proverbs there, so and you remember Mark started with Psalm 23.
Yes.
But all in all, I think that this discussion was very, very good, but it opens so many areas that we really didn't have the time to pursue. There's something that you mentioned, Sheridan, the World Creole Music Market, where all producers and distributors, and because I'm in that Creole music business, and I have to be a kind of liaison for all of them, you know. Sometimes the guys from Guadeloupe don't even know those in Martinique, or they have some kind of competitive way that, so there are people from Mauritius, Seychelles, Reunion that will pay their way to come to these markets so that they can discover, you know. So even that part is something that will work. I can remember, in closing, that that liaison job, I happened to have arranged to get Ian Douglas to go to Mauritius in some big Creole thing. I think he was Minister of Tourism at some point, and that kind of thing. But that's not my job. If we had an organization and we had this global Creole music market at the time of the World Creole Music Festival, it's not a separate thing. I mean, we would have been so much further in so many areas. But I figure we'll have a next time to talk.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, guys.
I think we have to have another time to talk, because what I think Timothy made a good point. You see, and I think the people who are now organizing and the policymakers have to understand when a good point is made. This thing is not meant for just to be somewhere and just, you know, languishing and so. This thing is meant to be grown, to be dynamic. It's a live thing. It's a business. When we talk about the business of culture, we're talking about business. I mean, a lot of countries are making so much business, earning so much revenue and foreign earnings from their culture. It's a business. So when we talk cultural industries, it seems to me those industries should be treated like any other major industry, like manufacturing or agriculture or tourism. And you have to give it its policies, you have to give its regime of incentives, and you have to look at the various products. And the various products are sometimes people. Only artisan, what is better than having people as a product where you can make their lives much better? Your people. And here you have a lot of young people. You see a lot of these young, Dominica always have a lot of bands. A lot of young people, a lot of talent. People can sing. People can play music. They play instruments. They learn. They teach themselves. If you can get these people wealthy enough that you don't have to worry about them because they're taking care of themselves, the country is better off, the society is better off. Look at the amount of crime that we're seeing taking place. I mean, it's really pathetic to see young people wasting their lives like that. Many of those young people have a lot of talent, you know. It's not like they haven't got talent. You need to find some avenue for them to all the energy that they have to dissipate. I mean, when we were younger, we used to play sports. When we want to play cricket and football, we're so tired, we haven't got to go anywhere to cause trouble anymore. All right? So we need to engage our young. I think that cultural industries is a great way to go if it is well organized. And I look, I'm talking to the policymakers. I'm talking to the organizers right now. I'm talking to the musicians and entertainers and artists and so on. I'm saying that the interests of cultural industries, the business of culture, needs to be placed in a corporation that is concerned with that kind of business. It cannot be a part-time thing. It's a full-time, year-round business. It cannot be, you cannot have a corporation, for example, just doing a Creole Music Festival once a year. No. This has to be a corporation that's focused on that kind of business, all right? To bring revenue to the people involved, to bring revenue to the country, to export the talent, to export the product, and bring more foreign earnings to the people who are going out there and receiving it, bring foreign into the country. This is what it's all about. It's not about a few people who are just doing it as part of a government machinery where politicians can call and say, okay, I want 1,000 or 500 complimentary tickets. That is, if you have a business and a politician, you tell them, no, you cannot do that. How can I give you 500 complimentary tickets? I can give you 10 or 20, but not 500. How you go to a business and give away 500 complimentary? Which business would just give away 500? You can't do that. So, I mean, it's the part of the education process to make everybody understand that this thing has to be treated like a business. And once you do that, you have to make sure you engage the right people in it to conduct the business. If you're going to want to do marketing, you have to engage the right person to do marketing. But you're going to have, and that is why, and I'm just saying it again for everybody to hear. If you're talking about the Creole music, if you want to create, I mentioned something, somebody said to me, I didn't know what I was talking about. I said, we need to develop a Creole music world beat. I'm not a musician. I will leave it to the experts to develop that. But I mean, you talk about Afro beat, you're talking about this beat and that beat. What about our Creole music beat that all our different players can work with and make it a world product, right? And put a dance to go with that. I mean, you know, somebody can look at a McCarthy and everybody dancing it all over the world. One little bit, you know, a real authentic beat. And I would leave it to the experts to come up with that. But by all means, you need to have a corporation that is focused. There's too much of that culture, too much of that talent, too much of that music. There are too many bands, performers, drama, all kind of things. Gentlemen, this is my final word on that. I'm hoping that Mark and Gordon and Ronald and Wadix, we can maybe come back again sometime and look at a real structured approach to go forward. I mean, and I'm pretty sure that between us, we can come up with some sound recommendations for that. And we can put numbers. We have some numbers, people there, you know. You have this guy called Ronald Land. He's a numbers guy, you know. He's the guy who tell you in the second year, there's $1 million there. Ronald probably projected, well, you know, in the 10th year, we should have 100 million. But the point is, you can come up with numbers and show projection and to show exactly what this thing can do, not only for the country, not only for the corporation, but for the people, the product, the people who are going to be out there, the musicians and artists and entertainers, the craft people. You have to show how it's going to make them wealthy, the kind of money they can earn and how. That is how I think you can convince policymakers that this thing is real. That is how we convinced Julius Timothy that we could do something. And Julius Timothy promised us $400,000 in the first year Wadix.
Yeah.
He gave us 200. 200. But we had to make do with that. And then in the second year, he gave us $100,000. And then, but Ronald Lander said we hit the $1 million mark, right? Very shortly after that. But the third year, we hit the $1 million. The point is, we knew what we were doing. And you see what Ronald said there? We had 3 layers of accountability. We had our internal accounting and audit. We had an external auditor, which was Morrow and Winston. And then for the birthday 21, if you recall, we had a 3rd layer of accountability, which was the audit department. They did an audit of that. And there were no sort of queries or no kind of conditionalities. No. So in other words, I think we did reasonably well with very little. Okay? And that is something that the organizers need to look at. And as somebody, I think Gordon said it, Mark said it, you don't have to pay anybody $1 million to come. As a matter of fact, you have to develop this festival to a point where artists will want to come there, because that is where, when you come, that's where you make your name in the Creole world. You want to come, so your promoters must say, listen, I send my artists free of charge if you let him perform on the big stage there. Because you give that brand such a big worldwide name, that is where people want to come and perform. You're with me? So, gentlemen, thank you so much. I think we did reasonably well. We went a little bit over time there. But I think we will need, if you all agree, we'll come back sometime and we'll try to do a more constructive approach. We'll forget about all the, analysis and so on. And we'll use that analysis to create a proper approach for the way forward. I hope Wadix will agree that we will keep the Creole in there, so that when we put the thing together, it will be still talking about a Creole thing. Are you with me, Wadix? All right, Lambi, good seeing you again. Take care. And Sherwin, thanks a lot. Gordon, thanks a lot. And Mark and Ronald and Wadix, everybody, and all the people on Facebook. Still a lot of people with us on Facebook and on YouTube. Good night, everybody. And thank you. All right. Take care. Take care, Lambi.
Looking out my window And I'm thinking of tomorrow, and I'm wondering what the future will be. Thinking of the children who are the victims of oppression, beaten down by wars and eaten up by starvation. I'm saying, when there's ugly will be over.